Well, hello, and welcome to the Horror Screams podcast. We are, of course, part of the Horror Screams Video Vault Network, and this is episode 34, which means we're almost 3 years old, which is kind of astonishing in terms of number of episodes. So I think we started it like maybe September 2019-ish. Can't remember. Anyway, it's been a while. And today we have a Final Destination special. That's right. We're going to be talking about the Death-O-Rama that is the Final Destination series, which unintentionally, because I don't think we knew this when we planned originally, but there is a sixth one coming. So that's cool.
It's exciting stuff.
It is, because it's been a long time. And
it has been a very long time.
And it makes sense because they're bringing everything back. You know, Scream's back. They're doing another Scream film, having brought it back this year. And Saw is coming back. And, you know, everything comes back in the air. There's a Friday the 13th TV series, Crystal Lake, that's being talked about and coming. So, you know, what's old is new and all that. I'm Stephen, of course, and I'm joined today, as ever, by our venerable co-host, Sarah. How's it going, Sarah?
It's going good, thanks. How's things with you?
Yeah, all right, thanks. Yeah, it's winter. Winter is here.
Winter is
bit wet.
Come.
Yeah. Yes, winter has come.
Drab. Did you have a good Halloween?
Yes, Drab and Dreary, that would be my band name. If I formed a band, here you go, straight in at number 78, Drab and Dreary with, oh my God, things are so bad.
Which one would you be?
I'd be Dreary. Drab. Who wants to be Drab? Dreary at least has got something going on. Cormac Dreary, relatively speaking, he's quite hot, but that's only by comparison to Drab.
Next to Drab.
Drab's like, oh, fuck off. Oh, sorry, that's too much swearing too soon. Yes, this may contain strong language. Do you know, one thing I miss about life is, this is a British thing, sorry, non-British people, but back in the days of video, you remember video? No?
Yes.
No? Is this still on? Video, yes, of course, we're both of an age.
We're both very old.
We're both so old. Our birth certificates were carved in stone. Can you believe that? Yes. Anyway, video days in Britain, at least. If you rented a video, late 80s, I guess, ish, 90s maybe. On the start of a lot of them, to explain the certificate of the film, you'd get Simon Bates, who's a radio DJ in the UK, doing his presentation, and he'd basically be like, and this film has been rated 18. That means it's unsuitable for people under the age of, you guessed it, 18. It may contain bad language, including sexual swear words. It may also contain scenes of strong violence and sex, which could be quite graphic, you know. And there was always spoofs of it. Like I think there was a spoof where it's not him, but it's a fake Simon Bates saying sexual swear words, including, you know, fuck, shit, cock, you know. But he never actually said the swear words, of course. It was this really weird kind of professorial chap coming on to slightly patronize you about the 18 rated film that you just rented. You know, well, yes, I'm hoping it contains some sex. I mean, I've just rented Betty Blue. It's going to be a really disappointing night if it doesn't. Yeah, that's totally irrelevant. Yes, Halloween was great. Thanks, Sarah. Went trick-or-treating around the neighborhood, which was quite a good haul.
Yeah, I was about to say it was a good year this year. It's getting, you know, people are really like properly getting into the spirit. You know, you see in all the American films and stuff, all like the effort people go to and stuff. It's kind of starting to catch on even more now over here, and I think this year was like probably one of the best, definitely since COVID. We live in the same area, so we kind of saw the same things, but like literally, like I have like a couple of neighbours on my street that, you know, they don't put the decorations out straight away. They put them up like that day, and then the house is just like, wow, crazy. And there's like bloody smoke machines and inflatable trees and skeletons and people jumping out of hedges at the trick-or-treaters and stuff. It was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, we went to a house, like you said. I mean, this is not intentionally. It's not that everybody in England lives in the same village, but we happened to do that. But yeah, we saw a guy hiding in a hedge that was cleverly pretending to be not really there, or, you know, a dummy or something. That was really effective. Also, yeah, loads of people. Like when I was growing up in the 80s, there was hardly anybody. Yes, dressed up.
It's the parents as well. The parents are dressing up as well as just the kids and stuff. I remember always just being the kids and stuff, you know, when I was a young'un and you know, doing my trick or treating and stuff, my parents would go with me, but they would never dress up. But I saw someone like head to toe in like I don't know, it was either like an inflatable unicorn outfit. I'm sure I saw someone dressed as a fish.
There was someone dressed as a dinosaur and a koala. It's really it's mental, totally. But like you said, it was the parents as well. Yeah, it's
it was
quite
good fun.
cool. I've always done Halloween on the basis that I'll always dress up with. I have a daughter, and I'll always dress up because I think it'd be weird if I wasn't. Although then I look around and think, well, that dad didn't bother, lazy bastard. But then, like you said, you know, there's no way my dad would ever have. Imagine talking to my dad. So, Dad, I mean, you could be a unicorn. Oh, what? You know,
or a fish. Here, come dressed as this like 6-foot salmon.
It's okay. I'm brushing my hair. Yeah, exactly. So things have changed. It's great. It has. You can see it in the shops. You know, there's a lot of preamble to Halloween in the UK that there didn't used to be. Loads.
There needs to be more though. There needs to be more. I'm one of them people whose houses, you know, my house is decorated with Halloween decorations like 365 days of the year.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Yeah, it's nice. It's going in the right direction, I think. And it was. I know last year it was the same guy dressed as or attached to a kind of inflatable dinosaur. He was there this year, which was, I thought, quite an ambitious feat. Although dinosaurs, Halloween, not quite sure if that works. But last year there was a lot of Squid Game people. I saw like several Squid Gamey people because I guess it was in last year, and this year was a massive mixture of.
It was loads of mixtures of things, but I didn't see too many Eddie Munsons or anything, which I was expecting to see.
Actually, yeah. I don't remember seeing anything stranger.
Yeah, I think kids-wise and stuff, I think I saw like some older kids with like the purge masks and stuff, which I think is always going to be like a thing now, which is cool.
Yeah, I like that idea. Yeah, no, I'm pleased that it's quite like my daughter is massively into totally obsessed with Stranger Things, and she's watching it on repeat. Which I see. I mean, maybe I should have stepped in and done an intervention and said, "Hang on a minute," but she, you know, I encouraged that because I was the same. You know, I was a total geek, possibly a bit older than her, but I was a total geek for X-Files and Twin Peaks when I was, you know, 12, 13, 14, that kind of thing that she's almost at. So I totally get that, and it's nice, you know, the genre stuff is out there, and as we know, so much of especially Stranger Things, so much of the genre stuff is basically just a kind of long tribute to the stuff we grew up watching.
Yeah,
we're not really, you know, we're stuck in that loop, which is a very nice loop to be in.
It's nice. Yeah. I like the nostalgia to Stranger Things and stuff. I think it'd be weird, you know, being like of a young age and liking that now, wondering where it would go, like, you know, 10, 20 years down the line. But, you know, seeing it at the age we are now, I'm like, wow, that's cool. That's a good thing for the younger generation to be growing up with and stuff.
I think so, and it says a lot about, you know, the lasting impact of the stuff that we grew up with, doesn't it? You know,
absolutely.
People are quite snippy. People can be quite snippy. Oh yeah, the 80s, yeah. Well, yeah, but I mean, yeah, we can laugh at the 80s, but actually, there's obviously something there if this stuff is just going round and round, not just the shows, but the music that's attached to the shows, like Stranger Things, especially, but lots of other things as well. The remakes and all of that stuff. So yeah, it's quite cool. But yeah, how about this though, Sarah? So Halloween was great because I did trick or treating and I showed said daughter. She's 11. I showed her The Fog, John Carpenter's The Fog.
Yes,
which was cool. And then though, because of The Fog, what happened was, quite logically, she said, "Oh, I'd like to watch The Mist because that sounds similar to The Fog. You know, maybe slightly thicker, different kind of, you know."
But is it? I would say Mist was slightly lighter than Fog.
Is that the case? Fog is thicker?
I think so. I feel like it is.
Okay, yeah.
But if you've watched one, you've got to watch the other.
Yeah, you're right. The Mist. But so I did. So I showed her The Mist last week.
Yeah.
And I hadn't forgotten, but you know, I was kind of aware of it. But The Mist is absolutely. I mean, she wasn't really massively affected either way, but she did like it. She loved the monsters. But I was The Mist is harrowing. I mean, The Mist is. I think it's amazing. I have put it at number one in my Stephen. I don't know if I did this when we did the Stephen King episode, but I
I
put it
think you
straight in at
did,
number
yeah.
one
Yeah.
because, or still at number one in that case, yeah,
Yeah.
because it is so utterly, extraordinarily harrowing. I love the monsters and the stuff in the supermarket with the characters is remarkably well acted, but obviously it has the most despairing ending of all time.
Yeah, and it's funny how you kind of like, yeah, sure, yeah, you want to watch the Mist? Oh, it's really great that you're really interested in watching the stuff that I like. I'll stick it on. Yeah, this is great. And you're like, oh shit, I remember that bit that's coming up now. Oh god, I'm going to traumatize her for life.
And you'd think that, right?
And she's just like, yeah, whatever.
She's like, no, I'm there now, and this sounds ridiculous. I don't want to paint myself as a complete wet blanket, which I kind of am. But I'm sitting there, all can't really speak properly, wet face, totally traumatized, even though I've seen it at least 3 times before. And she, how'd you find it? Oh, that was good, wasn't it? Unaffected. And yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, do you want me to tuck you in then?
Because you don't want the light left on. I could sleep in the room with you if you like.
Light on. I need some psychiatric help after watching that. And it makes, I get it. I get it. She's not a dad, obviously, because she's 11 and a girl. And so maybe to her, watching a father at the end of his tether, as it turns out, mistakenly killing everybody and shooting his own son. Might not be as horrifying.
Quite affect her. Yeah, as much.
Before the cavalry arrive. Actually, the army's here. Oh, what have you done? Oh, you've killed your own son and everybody else. Spoiler alert for The Mist. So yeah, it turns out that John Carpenter's The Fog is really sweet by comparison to the absolute horror show of The Mist, which Frank Darabont, oh man, what an extraordinary.
We love him.
And you know what? I wish he'd, because I've heard him talk in interviews, and he's quite discreet because presumably legally he has to be, but he does give the impression of the Walking Dead experience being a shit show for him.
Yeah.
But had he stayed on, I mean, oh man, I don't know.
It wouldn't have gone shit. Had
he
stayed on.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's picking up. It's trying its best.
Yes, I've heard.
Yeah.
I know someone else that is watching The Walking Dead. Yes.
Quickly changing the subject onto The Walking Dead, as it's like in its like final couple of episodes. But since it's come back on with these last few episodes, it's really picked itself back up. And the other night, episode 23, I think it was, I was literally like the times when oh god, I've forgotten his name. Maggie's husband, Glenn, when Negan gets Glenn, those moments when you sat there with your fist in your face, it was very much like that in these like last couple of episodes. And yeah, it's really like picked up. It's got really good. People are dying. People are getting bitten. There are, loads and loads of walkers. It's getting really good.
Gory? So it's still very
there gory. There's still some pretty good like gory bits and stuff. It has a lot of talky bits, but they make up for it with the other stuff. There's so much going on at any one time. Yeah, there was literally like about 4 or 5 things going on in one go, and I had my fist in my mouth for like pretty much like half an hour solid, just like ah! So it's really good. And it is gonna finish soon, so I don't quite know where I'm gonna go after this, because there's gonna be a load of spin-offs and stuff, but I don't know how invested I will be in them.
Yeah. Well, I because of that, and I know someone else that said it's really good lately. I think I got as far as series 9. I have to check that, but I might just do a YouTube kind of previously on whatever they've got on YouTube to recap.
Yeah, probably a good idea.
But yeah, I'm interested in going back just to catch, because it is, it's a long running show and it has its peaks and troughs. But if you're saying to me that there's this kind of, like you said, fist in mouth moments, because to me, that's why I like the show so much. Like the bit with Carol's daughter in season 2.
Yeah.
Totally. God, and the bit with the episode with the 2 little girls in season 4.
Look at the flowers.
Oh gosh, yeah. I was overwhelmed. Ridiculous. Yeah. I went to pieces because I'm so ridiculous. And the governor era, and like you said, the kind of early days of Negan with that the circle of people, and the cliffhanger on Glenn's absolutely horrific death, which is still one of the most extraordinarily horrific things I've seen on TV.
Yep.
I get that it's such a long running show, so it's gonna have the troughs, and maybe maybe they could have done, I don't know, but the truth, you can't change what's happened. So if they've rallied around and giving it a good finale, that's the main thing, isn't it?
Yep. I've still got, I collect, I'm a bit sad because I still like my DVDs and stuff, so I've been collecting DVDs and stuff of the show, like every time a season come out. I've got myself the box set and stuff, so I'm all sorted for when it's finished. I do have ambitions to literally, go through again, because I haven't done that since it started. I've never gone, I'm going to start from the beginning. So once it's done and dusted, I would like to, kind of like what we've done with like the Final Destination movies and stuff, sit down and watch them all one after the other, just to see if it, because the lulls and stuff that I remember from certain seasons and stuff could be because of COVID, because they dragged out season 10 for about 2 years, that kind of a thing. That's why that seemed to kind of drop in my opinions, because it took so long. If I sat and watched the whole thing, like binged watch, it probably wouldn't seem to drag as much. So I'm looking forward to doing that.
That's cool. And I'd kind of like to do the same, because like I said, there's moments and sequences of episodes that I thought were especially strong. No, that's cool. And I think it's a very sensible idea to buy the DVD, because as we know, with all of these shows, the people that run the streaming services, they're not going to have the rights to them forever. So Disney Plus have The Walking Dead at the moment, but chances are they won't in, who knows, a few years time. So it's a changeable beast.
Good thing to have.
Exactly. And they're shiny and they look nice on the shelf, and that's that. Exactly. So foggy and misty and deady things aside, we are here today. We are gathered around to worship at the altar, as we said, of the Final Destination franchise, which in the current incarnation runs from 2000 to 2011. So they cranked out 5 films in 11 years, which is quite impressive. Not as impressive as Saw, whereas there's another one every year.
One every year.
Paranormal Activity. There was pretty much one a year of those for quite a long time. But still impressive, especially I think for these ones, because these ones are mad ambitious. I mean, these are the Final Destination series, as we'll discuss, are a kind of hybrid of disaster movie, because in the 5th one you get bookended by massive disaster, bridge collapse, plane crash. They're 70s disaster movie versus a kind of teen slasher movie, where in this case it happens to be death, but a teen slasher movie format where a bunch of teenagers are killed off every 10 minutes, and there's a couple of sensible ones that hang around long enough to survive-ish up to a point. But there are also movies that are infused by, which is why I like them, and I'm sure it's why you like them too, Sarah, which are infused by the spirit of the Rube Goldberg machine, of the Mousetrap. Did you have Mousetrap growing up? Yes, it's Mousetrap the movie. And Mousetrap comes from Rube Goldberg, the inventor, the American inventor who created these elaborate gadgets which completed very, very normal and simple tasks, but in ridiculously long-winded ways. This chain reaction, this floats into that. Oh, that kicks off that. Oh, that bit of water has fed into that. Oh, fuck, there comes the spade.
It's like a health and safety disaster video that you'd watch on a first aid course. They should use these for educational videos for health and safety and first aid courses and stuff. Watch out for this. It is when you've watched the Final Destination movies, especially as we have sat and watched all 5 of them in quick succession, we're now all super hyper aware of what's going on around us. You're like, oh my god, there's a nail on the floor. Oh my god, it leads to that tap stripping. Holy crap, it's near that plug.
Totally.
That's what they do to you.
Which is brilliant, which is genius, absolutely.
It is genius, absolutely. So much fun, so hilarious.
And they're having fun. I mean, obviously the meetings for these things must be fantastic. I did listen, not in this rewatch, but years ago I listened to the commentary for Final Destination 2, which is maybe the most outrageous of all of them.
It is,
as we will discuss. And they're just laughing at their own ridiculous invention. They're in hysterics describing how they thought of, well, what if that, the ladder? Oh yeah. So yeah, they are that. There was I don't know if it's still on, but in Britain there used to be a show called Watchdog, probably still around, with a Scottish
still
woman
going.
called Lynn Foldswood when I was watching it. And there would be a lot of episodes that would investigate things that have gone wrong and chase companies for, things that were wonky and faulty and electrical things. And
cowboy builders and all that.
Exactly. And I think what was unofficially, I guess, her catchphrase was, this could be a potential death trap. Yeah. And yes, and it was all about things in the home. And in Final Destination, the water cooler's leaking. I'm sure that's not. Oh, fuck, that's gone into there. Then there's a massive spike that's heading to my eyeball. Yes. So this is the franchise that's Mousetrap turned up to 11. It's also The Omen turned up to 11. I mean, The Omen films when I was growing up, I'm sure you're the same. Although rather different because it's about Devil's Son, the Antichrist, is also a series that's completely built around there being a spectacular decapitation or bisection every 15 minutes. Oh, he's spending a long time in that lift. I wonder. Oh, the lift's broken. Now I understand. And very much The Omen. There was also a film. It's quite underrated actually, and if you've not seen it, it's well worth checking out. There's a film called Soul Survivor from the 80s. And it's kind of a zombie film in a way, Sarah.
Cool.
And it's very Final Destination-y because it's about somebody that survives a plane crash completely unhurt, and it plays on the idea, I suppose, that all these films are about, even though they're very comical, of survivor's guilt, of somebody, surviving something they shouldn't. But also, it is very much about this character being stalked by something and weird shit going down. And he thinks what's following him is the spectre of death itself, So it's very much in that vein. So these movies are very much all of those things, I think, back together. They're ridiculously gruesome. These movies in the 80s would never have been 15. They would have been 18 all the way. There's no way in the UK.
They're slow burns in a way as well because of the build-ups and stuff. And there's like so many red herrings. They're like, oh, you watch this and this bit runs to there. And then you're like, oh my God, he's going to get like a flamethrower in the face. And then nothing happens and a stone falls on his head or something.
Yes, misdirection is constant.
That's it, misdirection,
huge. And what I love about them is, and we'll go through all 5 of them, don't worry, is that, they're all structured the same way. So, a bad thing happens. Jesus Christ, in the first 10 minutes, lots of people have died. Oh, it's just a vision. It's a preview. It's a psychic vision by somebody that's attuned to that kind of thing. And then, blah, blah, the survivors die off. And a couple of people will plod along, like you said. It's kind of, the pacing is somehow fast and slow at the same time because there's regular deaths, but there's also a lot of plodding along. Oh, well, why is this then? I think we've cheated death. Oh, I see. Let's go and see if Jeff's okay. Oh God, Jeff has just been impaled by a swordfish. And so it's basically 2 people, usually a boy and a girl-ish. They walk between their friends that have just perished. They've not been able to survive to save Jeff quite in time, gradually figuring out that maybe death itself is stalking them and their friends at work or at home in these very familiar kind of domestic situations. But yeah, and along the way, all these movies are playing on things that we're all freaked out by, whether it's eye trauma or other stuff. But hilariously, what I think is great about most of these, maybe not the first one, which is quite serious and somber, but most of them are about, the ridiculousness of Looney Tunes style, very large objects falling from the sky to squash you like a brick, like Acme in the Looney Tunes cartoons. Gee,
very much like that.
Squishy sound effects.
Especially 2 and 3.
Yes, exactly, which is why we love them. So without further ado, Sarah, yes. So that's the gist of what we're talking about today. The Final Destination films coming back soon to a place near you, but otherwise confined to the distant past of the kind of first decade of this century. How did you join this series, Sarah? I know I watched all of these in the cinema because I was of age and I was going to the cinema a lot. But what about yourself? How did you watch these films originally?
I think, yes, I was the same. In kind of like hanging out with friends, heard about it. Everyone was like, "Oh yeah, we've got to go and see this." So I definitely, yes, I saw the first one in the cinema, and was like absolutely like blown away. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. It's one of those ones that you just come out of the cinema just like, what the fuck?
Yes.
Because
Completely.
to be fair, about that kind of time, I mean, I'm not a very good flyer myself. I don't think I'd ever got on a plane. I don't think I got on a plane until after my brother got married, so probably a good 5 or 6 years after I'd seen Final Destination. And I was literally adamant, like, I'm going to be one of them people, you know, I know whatever plane I get on, it's going to crash type thing. And watching that reaffirmed it in my mind. I was like, see what can happen if you go on a plane. It's like, that's why you don't do this. But yeah, it was great. And considering, like, obviously it was the first one, the whole crash and stuff that starts off at the beginning, you're just like, well, and now what happens? And then you just come back through his eye and you see it's a vision and you're like, he's going to freak out. What's going to happen after this?
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, absolutely.
I love the idea of like the big action, like straight away, every single time within the first 5-10 minutes of the film, you know, something massive and spectacular happens in every single one of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that sets you up to think, really, oh my God, what's going to happen next?
Yes, I think that's kind of astonishing, isn't it? Because these films, I mean, they quite a few of these 5 films look like they probably cost a fair bit because, you know, I mean, they probably just very economical, I think, but it does blow the budget straight away with a plane crash. You know,
don't look too dated either, especially not in Final. The first one doesn't actually like, you know, there's no dodgy. No really dodgy CGI that kind of dates it. Some of the others I'm a little bit like, oh God, that looks a little bit crap. But, but in the first one, you don't notice it so much.
No, the first one is interesting to go back to, isn't it? Because obviously it's the oldest one. It came out in 2000. I remember watching it at the cinema like you and knowing about it, and there was a buzz around it because it was on the back of loads of conventional slasher films, like the Scream sequels had kind of played themselves out with Head. I know what you did last summer and things like that. So this was a teen sort of slasher, but it wasn't really a teen slasher. It was a riff on it. And this came along and it had the proper talking points. And obviously this would turn out to be the whole survival blood of the series, which is the regular deaths. But yeah, there was much more going on with this. And to start off the way it does is spectacular. I mean,
and you can do that
sequence.
Yeah, with the trailers and stuff, you can show stuff like that because you know there's more to come. Whereas with most like action films and stuff, you show stuff like that and you're like, well, I've seen pretty much like the gist of the film now. Whereas with Final Destination, you're like, this is the teaser. You're like, how do the survivors? What happens to the survivors? And the first kill in the first Final Destination is I actually found it really quite creepy.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, in many ways, I mean, this first film is serious. It's much more serious than the others. It does have a sense of humor. It does have. It has in jokes, so I think some of the others do this. It's got a lot of characters named after directors. Hitchcock is in there. It's Bob Hitchcock, Val Lewton, Todd Browning. You know, it's got the kind of Agent Shrek. So it's got a bunch of those going on. But it is generally played very straight and very somber, and it's trying, I think, more than the later ones, which are much more broad. I mean, you know, you get to number 5, well, 2 actually straight away is mostly cartoonish, even that early in the series. But this one is pretty powerful, I think. The plane crash is quite disturbing. There's nothing kind of funny about the plane crash. It has that great moment as well where they say, well, you know, we've just seen a screaming baby and a disabled guy. I'm sure that, you know, if there is a God, it'd be really fucked if he decides to bring down this plane. Which I thought was quite cool. But it is a harrowing depiction. Also interesting that this came out in 2000. So this is playing on all of our ultimately deep down flying anxiety right before September the 11th in 2001. Sorry. So that's quite interesting, especially as it starts off in New York. But yeah, the first death, man. So the first death is genuinely quite disturbing. I think it's maybe interesting that it's the first. It might be the most uncomfortable one of the series.
Definitely. Or one of
Because
the
it's so
most.
relatable and it's so simple in a lot of ways, but
and it's so sad because
horrible.
everyone thinks he's committed suicide. Or his parents do, at least. Obviously, Alex and Claire and everyone like that are kind of on to something. But the fact that the leaking toilet that starts it all off then kind of goes back, that's creepy. That's the kind of supernatural element to it.
Yeah, the water motif kind of keeps coming back, doesn't it? Lots of things leak in the series, but in the first one, where you do also see what you assume is death as a kind of shadowy presence haunting the film, makes it kind of creepy, and you see a shadowy figure in this particular death. But I think it's cleverly playing on things that we find weirdly hard to watch, like he's clipping his nose hairs at one point. Which to watch that is quite, why are we dwelling on this?
You're like, but like, why are we getting such a close-up of these like blades up someone's nose? You're just like, this is not going to end well. But again, it's misdirection, but it kind of goes in an even worse thing, like the whole slipping in the bath thing.
Who hasn't? Yes, exactly. Who hasn't slipped on a bathroom slippery floor or in the bathtub itself and thought, shit? Because when I think this was probably because of blooming Watchdog again, but growing up there was always this sense of and I've forgotten what film it is. It might be Nightmare on Elm Street, where she has the bath in that. But there's definitely a sense growing up watching horror. You think, most accidents do happen in the home. You're just there, you go having a shower.
Houses are death traps.
Which is a brilliant and genius thing. And in this case, very the detail as well, I think, of his eyes, bloodshot eyes, as he's throttled himself, is quite unpleasant. It's not a big gore death, but it is a very personal, and
it's drawn out and prolonged.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. That's that's the point where the series is still quite disturbing.
And then for like the second kill, they go completely in the opposite direction, and it's one of those out of the blue, someone gets taken out by a bus, literally.
Wow. Well,
like, blink and you miss her.
Well, that's great, and this is where the films really work, I think, particularly in the cinema. I remember watching this in the cinema, and as you said, the trailers, you get the idea of what's going to be happening, maybe-ish, but what it can't tell you is this great moment with no music or anything like that. It's what's his name's, because it's a bunch of 90s sort of early 2000s teens in this, and one of them is the guy from Dawson's Creek, and it's his girlfriend. And she's like, you can just drop dead, and she walks into the road, and a bus from nowhere, knocks her down in the cinema. That was such a kind of popcorn dropping, gore blimey, where's my trousers?
Did that just happen?
Exactly. And I'm guessing this is deliberate, because there's a character called Val Luton in the film, which is the teacher. But this is a rather clever pun, I think, on what used to be called, and probably is still called, the bus scare in Cat People, which is the film from the 90s. From the 40s, the 1940s, where which is often seen as the originator of the jump scare, which is where a character is being stalked through Central Park, and the very loud sound of a bus appearing from nowhere, the sound of the bus jolts you at that particular point when she's actually safe, but the bus makes you jump. So I think that's possibly the wittiest kind of jump scare type thing, given its history of horror reference, that there is. So, but it's such a very effective sequence. There's no real gore in that. You just see, like you said, she's gone before you know it. And that is kind of a preview, I suppose, of some of the more cartoony deaths that are to come.
They do it. They do it again later on in that film, don't they? Like, we've done it with a bus. We'll do it with something else this time, but it's not going to be what you think it is. And then they do the getting hit by vehicles in another one as well.
Yes, the bus kill death thing does come back. They do a few kind of buses later on in the series. For sure.
It then kind of drops a little bit. It kind of goes a little bit talky, and like Alex and Clear Rivers. I really hate that name.
Claire
Because
Rivers.
you think her name is Claire, and you're like, they're saying it really weird, and then you're like, oh no, her actual name is Clear Rivers. Such a or odd name. But yeah, they kind of do a little bit of talking. They're kind of figuring out that something supernatural's going on, so it kind of all gets a bit talky and a bit quiet, and then they go down another route of the your house is a death trap type thing with Mrs. Luton.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, absolutely. And what I think is is possibly the most bad taste kind of joke in this series is the fact that the recurring song in the film, including what she's got listening to on record, is by John Denver, who died in a plane crash.
Yeah.
In real life, which is a good bad taste gag. You know, if you're gonna do a bad taste gag, at least have quite a witty one.
At least do it well, yeah.
And this movie is by, I mean, this Final Destination generally started as an X-Files episode that never happened, pitched by Jeffrey Reddick, who's the screenwriter of this, with James, try and get it around the right way, James Wong and Glenn Morgan, who were regular writers on the X-Files, who James Wong directed this. And their speciality, even kind of watching it when I was really young, I picked up on the fact that their episodes would often use kind of easy listening or lovely country songs for the most horrific things possible, you know, including the episode of X-Files that they never showed again in America because it was really gruesome. So I quite like that. But yeah, Valerie Luton, is pretty gruesome, Sarah. Is an elaborate series of bad things happening when you're just making a cup of tea. Or a cup of vodka, I think it is, actually.
Well, you know, she starts with a cup of tea, then she throws it away, and then she puts in the vodka and ice, which cracks her mug, which then kicks off a series of things, because then you have to walk around the house and drip it over your computer and not even notice that you've done that kind of thing. And they go, oh no, I'll go back into the kitchen where I've balanced this knife on the side of the counter and that kind of stuff. Is a crazy series of events. Which does end quite hilariously, though.
It is funny. I mean, presumably deliberately, right? I mean, this is the most somber one, but it is obviously very blackly funny.
Yeah, very blackly funny, because, like, the final kill, she just, like, ends up throwing a load of knives in the air and stabbing herself. And Alex, who's trying to go and save her, then ends up turning up right at the wrong time as the knife gets like shoved in, and then he's holding it in his hand, which is
I'll just pull this out.
I'll just help you here. I'll just pull that out. I mean, he's already under investigation by the FBI for the whole plane thing, because they then kind of like start questioning him, thinking he has something to do with the plane exploding and stuff like that. So they're following him around. So he then has to go on the run because they think that he's killed Mrs. Luton, when he, in fact, I don't think he was ever going to try and save her, but it just seems to be the way in the Final Destination movies that, like you say, they go running to save their friend just at the moment their friend dies. They always turn up at the end to watch them die.
Yeah, I think I like the fact that, and the FBI is I've forgotten what the other guy's name is, but it's partly represented by Daniel Roebuck, isn't it, from the Rob Zombie?
Yes, I love him.
Is he Herman Munster? I haven't seen it. Is he Herman in the new Munster movie?
No, I don't think he's Herman, is he? I think so.
He's is he Grandpa?
Oh, he could be Grandpa. Yeah. No, I still not seen the Munsters.
The other guy. Yes. Yeah, the FBI investigation is ridiculous. I mean, you know,
it's silly.
What does that mean? He was driving the bus that killed the other, or how would he have got into the bathroom with that first guy? I mean, it's a pretty much a placeholder, and I know in Final Destination 5 they bring in another kind of FBI agent kind of character that's totally pointless, but is there to kind of fill in space between deaths, I think, is the idea of which I kind of get, because, you know, you've got to structure your deaths around something. I like that sequence. I think that the Val Luton sequence of this charade of, you know, my vodka mug is cracked and my computer's exploded and I've got a shard of glass from that in my neck, before I pulled the knife rack on, is the beginning of the kind of mousetrap scenario, isn't it? That's the first of the deaths that sets up that kind of sets a kind of precedent for, well, how can we outdo The chain of
first was,
events.
yeah, it's like they kind of started it off with Todd in the bathroom.
Which is stark and horrifying. Yes.
Yeah, and then thought, how can we make this a little bit funnier along the way? So
Yeah.
that's how they then built up to Mrs. Luton's, I think.
Yeah. And it's quite cool. I mean, it's really well done. And I think, but again, it's about the sustained suspense of, well, how is she going to go? Oh, and with an audience. I mean, this stuff is very much, I think, more than, well, those slasher movies, I suppose Friday the 13th and all those things are very big audience films. I think that's why those did really well in the 80s, because it's all about, you know, what's going to happen next, who's going to get a machete in the face or whatever. So this is very similar. What about the next one? I mean, going with the very early 2000s cast, obviously we've got Devon Sawa as the lead, who is there with Ali Larter as the hilarious Claire Rivers, who's a bit of a gloom, a bit of a kind of,
she is, yeah, a bit of a
sort of gothic.
loner.
I quite like her though, because she's so depressing. You know, she
is gloomy and
downer.
Depressing for sure. And then Carter, yeah, the jock.
Is he? Yes, he's the guy.
Oh,
He's
and
the guy from
Billy.
Dawson's Creek.
I think he's the guy. Carter's the guy from Dawson's Creek. Who's Billy? Who's Billy? I've
Sean
seen him in loads of
American
things.
Pie.
That's it. Yeah.
Yes,
Sean William Scott.
Comic relief. Yeah,
Bloody
Sean
love
William
him.
Scott. He's basically playing his American Pie character.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I like that, because it makes me nostalgic for 2000, 1999-ish. And he's the victim of the next death, Sarah. Sean William Scott has a really good death, I think. I like this one.
He really does, because you don't expect it to be him.
No.
Because Carter thinks he knows what to do. Oh, we haven't mentioned Tony Todd yet either. There's kind of like stuff going on there, because Alex and Claire have to go. They go to a morgue. I can't remember why. Why do they do that?
I don't know. Is it? Why would they? I can't remember. Actually.
I can't remember. For some reason, they go to the morgue. Maybe they go and see, like, I think they're trying to find the last person that died. I think they wanted to see Mrs. Luton's corpse, or is it Billy's corpse? No, sorry, Todd's corpse. It's Todd, the first guy. Yeah. They want to go and see his corpse, so they bump into Tony Todd, who gives them loads of cryptic things, like he knows what's going on, and he's really cool, and we love him. But he tries to kind of say that there is some kind of pattern to what's happening, which is then what makes Alex and Claire kind of figure out who's next to go, which is when he then finds Mrs. Luton. So yeah, Carter then thinks, I think it's Carter's next turn to go. So he decides he's going to try and do it himself. So with Alex and Claire in the car, he stops on a train track and waits for the train to come and get him. And I think Alex then has another vision of a seatbelt snapping or something, and he's trying to get Carter out. The seatbelt snaps, he saves Carter, so they think they've then broken the chain and everything. They're like, oh yeah, we've done it, everything's great, yay, no one else is going to die, this is all cool. The train then decides to come past, flips up a tiny bit of metal from the car, which then slices Billy's head off or something, or slices through his head. It's another one of those what the fuck moments, because you're not expecting it to happen there and then.
Yeah, it's really good. It's a good one, isn't it?
That's one of the ones I remember the most. It's probably not the most spectacular or anything, but it is one of the kills that I remember the most.
Yeah, and it
for
is
some reason.
I think it's really, and it is in the spirit of The Omen, because The Omen has a great decapitation, and this I think is quite a novel way of doing it. And especially with him, because he's probably, I mean, Ali Larter is quite depressing, although obviously quite a memorable character, and Devon Sawa doesn't have that much going on, but Sean William Scott's kind of amusing, and you wouldn't mind him hanging around a bit longer. So I think it's quite effective.
It's sad. Yeah. You're like, oh, why did they have to take him? So they've then unravelled the fact that even though Carter got skipped, or Alex saved Carter, it then skips on to the next person. So it kind of then goes a little bit like, oh, we have to work out who's next. And it gets a little bit hero-y then, doesn't it? Because I think it then skips to Claire. Alex manages to save her in dramatic fashion with electric cables flying around the place.
Yeah.
And then it kind of goes a little bit kind of heroic-y then. And I did, to be fair, I kind of started to lose interest a little bit, and they kind of eventually he saves Claire, everything seems great, and then they do the SpongeBob SquarePants thing of 6 months later. Where they have made it to Paris, all three of them, and but they haven't escaped death, or two of them haven't.
Yeah, and there is, I mean, it makes sense. There is on the Blu-ray or DVD, there is an alternative. I mean, originally this movie was even more somber because there's a whole kind of subplot about Ali Larter being pregnant with his child. There's a whole relationship that never happens in the final cut.
Oh yeah, I was going to say I've not seen this alternative ending.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's totally. I totally get where they went for the spectacular, again, mousetrap style killing off of the least likable person. But yeah, the original From Memory is that she's pregnant and it has a very kind of quiet, somber. He dies saving her. Like this is again From Memory, so I don't know if it's
Alex.
Yeah, okay. Devon Sawa's character dies, and she I think she's at his grave or something in the original ending with his child, and it's something to do. I think they make a point of it being because she's pregnant, blah blah. This has happened with the plan, but it's a much more somber ending that apparently, quite understandably, didn't go down well with the test audiences. So they reshot the whole Paris thing with the John Denver thing back again, and Thingy from Dawson's Creek getting squished,
wiped him out.
Camera by exactly, which makes sense.
I like
because,
that. That's a good ending. I liked the ending, so I'm glad I've never seen the alternative. I don't think I would have been that impressed.
It's a bore. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it fits with what I suppose they were going for, which was a more serious kind of piece. But obviously, what turned out was that this film, most people were excited by the bus jumps, the bus kill, or by the decapitation of American Pie guy, rather than some slightly boring subplot about her being pregnant. I do like that she's so excited about breaking into the morgue. That's the happiest she looks in these two films that she's in is when she's breaking into the morgue to see Tony Todd. I suppose you would be, though. I mean,
well, yeah. Anyone
he's great.
He's brilliant.
He's in this for one scene. I mean,
yeah.
Tony Todd in this series, you could probably add up his screen time from all 5 films and it's a few minutes or whatever. But because he's Tony Todd, he brings a huge amount of gravitas and he's clearly having quite a good time. And and he's got catchphrases like "I'll see you soon," which is a threat stroke promise.
Yeah.
Like you said, very cryptic, pointlessly cryptic. Well, death has his plan. Yeah, mumble. Yeah. Oh, there are no accidents. Yeah. It was a masterstroke to cast someone so marvelously charismatic and menacing as Tony Todd.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the first movie, Sarah. I mean, any other thoughts on the first one? It holds up, I think. I do agree with you.
It does hold up. Yeah.
There's moments of flagging or whatever the word is.
Yeah. There's some slow bits, but it's interspersed with like some really cool, fun things that you just wouldn't expect were going to happen.
Yeah, and do you think the original suffers only because it's by comparison with the busier sequels? Like in the cinema, this was great. I came out like, wow. Even though it's 20 years ago, I remember quite well. Is that what it is? Is it because the others have got a lot more mental stuff?
Yeah, a bit more mental, a little bit more animated, a little bit more fun to it. Yeah, like you say, this one is definitely the most serious. I think that is mainly down to like the main character as well. Devon Sawa's character. He's not
that exciting.
He's really not that exciting, no.
He's a bit dull, isn't he?
I mean, he is a bit dull. No, don't tell
he's the kid
anyone.
From Casper. He's the boy from Casper. Yeah,
he is. He is a little bit dull, and Claire is a little bit gloomy. To be the main,
ironically, someone called Claire.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a bit. I mean, I mean, this is a bit personal, but I remember always ending up kind of attached to quite depressing goths at a certain stage in life, and she's one of those ones that you can imagine being quite attracted to, but then realizing that every evening was a series of messages on an old-fashioned mobile phone where they wanted to kill themselves or something. I think that's
Yeah.
that's her.
Mm-hmm.
Flashback. But yes, exactly. And I never forgave Devon Sawa because I had quite a teenage crush on Christina Ricci and Casper, which obviously he ruined by turning up at the end as a fucking ghost that's made flesh, bastard. The good news is, in between films, as Final Destination 2 tells us, Devon Sawa is killed by a falling brick in between films, which is the best news.
Yeah, I think
yeah.
with the rest of the films, I think they do kind of pretty much manage to finish everybody off in one film. But yes, you are left thinking at the end of first Final Destination that Alex and Claire are safe. Nothing happens to them.
Yes.
Carter dies right at the end, and you're like, oh, okay. So I kind of thought those two would both be back for 2, because you knew as soon as you came out the cinema that there was going to be another one.
Yeah,
you're like,
absolutely.
I've got like serious sequel vibes going on here. This could go on for a long time.
There's no end to it. Yeah, Jesus, yeah, because Death's plan, as Tony Todd tells us, Death's plan is, well, what is his plan again, Tony Todd? Well, I'm not going to tell you.
Mumble.
I know, but I'm not going to tell you. He's mysterious. Like God, he works in mysterious ways. Oh, Jesus. Oh, what? That's nothing. You've not told us anything. I'll be back in the sequel. Yes. So, yeah, I mean, it's good. Like you said, Devon Sawa is a bit, no one really cares about him. He's dead. He's been killed by a brick, which is one of the worst ways to go. I've checked, and it really is. Ali Larter, padded room for her.
She checks herself into the mental institution herself.
Yes. And what all that means is, although we have to deal with Ali Larter until she buys the farm in number 2 eventually, we're kind of reset for Final Destination 2, which came out in 2003, I think. Hilariously, I watched this in America.
Wow.
I watched this in the USA on holiday, and the genius of the USA's rating system is that an R rating, which is what these movies are, roughly equivalent to our 15 or 18 in the UK, means that anybody under 17 can come in if they've got a parent or guardian with them. So I watched Final Destination 2, chuckling my ass off at some of the most outrageous death scenes I've ever seen in the cinema, with a parent. Yes, with a parent somewhere in the audience, with like, I don't know, 3-4-year-olds in attendance. It was mental.
Wow.
So we looked around.
It's got to be crazy in America. I bet they were shouting and screaming and whooping.
It kind of is. Yes, it's not like us reserved Brits where, oh, bravo. Yes, that's pretty good. You know, it's much more fucking hell. Obviously not in that accent because they're American. Holy shit. No, that's not right. Yes, exactly. Thank you. We're from a very remote part of England. So yes, I mean, part 2, I watched in America, which is ridiculous.
Wow.
I watched a bunch of films. I remember like being in America, thinking, what should we do? Oh, let's go to cinema. Yeah. Because these films, back in 2003, it took forever for stuff to come out in the UK. You'd wait 6 months and eventually, something would come out. But it was really bizarre because it was watching Final Destination 2 in a cinema with kids. That was really, this? This is not Shrek.
Especially considering how it starts. Like, were they still in the cinema by the end of it?
Yeah, it's a long time ago, but from memory, no one left. I mean, it was like, well, questionable parenting choice, but interesting.
Yeah.
So two for me, like I said, watching all of these in the cinema, which is the best place to see them, really, with reactions and stuff. But 2 for me is where it really all kicks off. This one, from the moment it started, well, it takes a while, but the very opening stretch, with the thing that has scarred us all for life in terms of driving on any kind of road behind a truck with loads of logs.
Absolutely.
Is balls to the wall, in your face. We're not taking this massively seriously, but this is what you wanted. That scene in the first one that you all loved? Well, here it is times 10. Oh, and Tony Todd's back. But yeah, the opening stretch of this, I think, is outstanding. I think it's tremendous. I mean, it is. It's as we go on, we see a lot more CGI and stuff, and there's some CGI stuff here, but you forgive it because it's so mental. I think it's a great sequence. The The freeway sequence.
It's absolutely brilliant. It's like
Amazing.
from one, oh my god, death literally within seconds to the next one.
Yeah.
You know, the cop getting taken out by the log, you know, literally just obliterating him, and then you see in the log come back through the wind, like the back windscreen of the car just covered in blood.
Yeah.
You're just like, what the hell? And then literally straight after that, they got the dude on the motorcycle that just gets completely splattered. The guy, is it a Mustang or something? Possibly not a Mustang. Or Trans
maybe.
Am. Trans Am, like the one kind of like who ends up just getting like the roof whipped off and burnt alive. You know, what the hell else can we do? You know, everyone just meets an incredibly gruesome end.
Yeah, it's spectacular. I still believe this is true. I don't think I'd ever seen anything like that before.
No.
Like on that, because obviously we've seen car chases and crashes and
never in that
not a
quick succession.
No,
exactly. You'll see one good kill, and possibly 10 minutes, 15 minutes later, there'll be another one. But this one's just like amazing kill, amazing kill, amazing kill, amazing kill. Don't blink, you'll miss the next kill.
Yeah, and it is a remarkable combination of real live stunt work, and there's a lot of that. You know, it's clearly real stunts with some CGI. You can see some of the green screen stuff, but I don't think it distracts much, and some practical gore. But it all works really well. I think it's 20. This is now like almost 20 years old. It's 2003. I think that's right. But it's an incredible sequence. I would say it's the best sequence of the whole series.
Yep.
And it's never really changed.
We're doing the top 5 later, so I don't want to give too much away, but it might be on my list.
There's a chat, and the build up is quite fun, isn't it? Because you've got the usual slasher movie style setup of a bunch of teenagers smoking weed and planning a weekend of shagging.
Yeah.
You know, and the nods to Flight 180, Highway to Hell on the radio.
Again with the relevant songs.
The ironic
and it kind of puts in a little bit of a twist here, because obviously in the first one pretty much everybody kind of knew each other, whereas in Final Destination 2 it basically turns out to be a bunch of strangers, so they're all in the queue. The girl, what's her name? Kim.
Yes.
And then her character name is Kim. She sees the whole crash happen. And once again, you know, like kind of a blip, you kind of see through her eyes just before it's all going to happen. So she stops on the side of the road, holds up a bunch of people behind her, who are people who she saves. But obviously she's got a car full of people, so you think like she saved everyone. But literally out of nowhere, just as the road crash happens, her car gets wiped out and her 3 friends are killed.
Yeah.
So instantly you then think to yourself, well, how does that work in regards to the premonition? Because already it's gone slightly squiffy. If it was still like it was in the first Final Destination, look, with Alex and that, he had a definite like cue as to who dies then, and then. But her 3 friends that die with her at the end are then taken out straight away, but she's still alive. So I'm like, oh, how the hell's this going to work?
Yeah.
Puts a kind of little twist on it, and it is dead on a year from the Flight 180. And the 180 pops up quite a lot within the films, doesn't it? It's a recurring number.
Yes. Yeah, quite cleverly, I think. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And later on it comes up again. Yeah. There's a lot of nods to the earlier film. It's also the first stretch is the introduction to one of the more entertaining characters from this series, which I've forgotten his character name. It's Jonathan Cherry's character, who jokes about there being part of the Different Strokes curse and things like that. Jonathan Cherry's in a few things around this time. I don't know what happened to him. I can't remember what else he was in. He's great though. I like him.
Yeah, he's brilliant. And his death is like my favourite.
Oh, the trisection. Is it 3 ways?
Yeah.
Split?
the whole setup to that is just absolute cast. That's the thing. They thought about the setups here. Every kill is set up, and set up.
Oh man, this is the
sometimes
one.
Sometimes I can, like on my watch recently, I kind of went, you know what, this is actually getting a little bit drawn out now. It's like, come on, just fucking get on with it. But they do set things up crazily. Like the first guy to goes through this whole horrendous series of events.
Massive.
He's literally like, apparently he won the lottery.
He did
before everything had all happened. He'd won the lottery. He survives this road traffic accident thanks to Kim, and then like how he actually dies is just like so many near misses. It's
Brilliant.
ridiculous.
And this is the beginning, isn't it, of the truly mousetrap type thing, because
Yeah.
I love that guy because he comes home with like an iMac, whatever the biggest thing was in 2003, gold watch.
Yeah.
And it's the kitchen hazards, and the hilarious thing is the first
And
thing he throws out the pasta,
yeah,
which is the thing that kills him in
out
the
the
end.
window, and you're just like, why? It's like, why are we showing? Why is he
Which makes
showing
no
that
sense.
landing on the floor? I'm like, obviously afterwards when it's all happened, you're like, okay, I understand why that was relevant now. But after all that, throwing pasta out the window and then everything else that happens.
The fridge magnet predicts his end because the thing drops and it says
drops into the microwave.
The microwave explodes and
gets his hand trapped in the garbage disposal.
Yes, which is a classic. Don't put your hand in there. No one puts their hand in there. He says, "Oh, I'm really lucky." And before he died, it's in the ladder.
He slips on the spaghetti and gets the fire escape ladder through his eyeball.
And it goes, like you said, it goes on for it. But that becomes the sort of the trend. Not every death is like this, but it becomes the trademark of misdirection.
The next one is just as mental.
I love the next. This is the beginning of pigeons turning up in this series. The series becomes a pigeon thing. Pigeons are the portent of, death's master plan or whatever. And there's actually a line where someone says, "Oh my God, Nora and Tim are going to be attacked by pigeons."
Yes.
Because they think, they're right in a sense, but the dentist sequence, and this is basically remade with laser eye surgery later on in number 5. Yeah. But I think this is fantastic. I know it goes on forever. These movies,
stupid.
These movies have 10 minutes of people wandering around looking glum, and then 20 hours of people going, "Oh, that's leaking."
Yeah, close-ups of plugs and
water but you got it. It's
fish
great
tanks
because it's dentists. So straight away we're on fucking.
Oh yeah, you're like,
and there's close-up drilling.
Yeah, death by dentist. You're like, oh, this is going to be so horrible and so painful, and like I can't look, and you're just like literally looking through your fingers, and it has absolutely the dentist nothing. It's misdirection.
Pointless. Yeah.
But when there's like a little floaty mobile above the kid's head, and the dentist gets sent out, and it's got like weird plastic fish on it or something, hasn't it? And one of the fish like falls off the mobile and falls into his mouth, and you're like, oh my God, he's going to freaking suffocate on a fish.
But wait,
this is it.
But wait, what dentist have you ever been to that has a baby's cot style mobile above the fucking chair? No, we're not 3 or 3 months. But yeah, exactly. And they do remake this almost in a very similar fashion, except without the baby style mobile above the chair with the eye surgery number 5. But hilariously, I love the fact, and this isn't unique to this film, but I love the fact that the dentist surgery happens to be right next to a massive construction site.
They always
you see them moving this massive sheet of glass outside. Oh, I wonder if that will be relevant in a few minutes. And there's a pigeon that hits the window, and at one point I think it's what's her name, Flouncy McGraw. Who's the main girl in this one again? I can't remember her name. She's so kind of one note.
Yeah, she is a bit, isn't she?
Mildred McGagg.
Her name is Keegan Connor. No, sorry, not her. No.
Oh no, that's not
AJ Cook.
AJ Cook, which sounds weirdly familiar, but okay, AJ Cook. So she's pigeons, she's shouting pigeon, and this does have a great payoff, though. You have to admit, and I never knew this was.
That's another one that I really remember.
This is tremendous. This Final Destination 2 kind of relishes killing off kids. He's about, I don't know, 14 or something. And it's very Omen-like, it's very much like that plate of glass that kills David Warner in The Omen and slices up his head. In this case, it's Looney Tunes because it crushes him.
Literally just splats on him.
It's an Acme plate of glass that's fallen from God somewhere. Which is show-stopping. It's worth the wait.
It's crazy. And you think you're going to get 2 for 1 as well, because you think the mum's going to go as well.
But she gets to watch her own son being squished.
Yeah, the way they set it up in the dentist and stuff, you think they're both she's going to get electrocuted, he's going to, suffocate on a plastic fish. But in the end, he gets squashed by glass. She gets to watch.
which is
It's
which is a
horrific.
great joke. It's a dark. I mean, that's not the darkest joke of the film, but it's almost. It's I think there is a sense that everyone's cackling at that point, but it's such a great audience kind of participation moment. And then Tony Todd turns up, and
Yay.
this time he's proper. I mean, I think he's only in it for one scene again, but he's proper camping up. Like I remember a kind of giggle and dead but still fresh. He's like
You're back,
his
'cause
mortuary is
obviously
like a fairground attraction.
it's
Roll up.
yeah, it's like got grander as well.
It's
got massively grand
done that.
in
He's
the
pimped it up.
1 year it's been. They climb in through a window in like Final Destination, the first one, and it's kind of dark and gloomy and dingy. This one's like palatial. They turn up, and Claire is the one that takes them to him, because she checks herself out and she's like, okay, I'm going to help you guys beat this and rah, rah, rah. So yeah, for some reason she decides they need to go and see Tony, who can give them some great words of wisdom, and he just kind of mumbles again.
Death's plan, new life, death's plan, something.
They all decide they're going to kind of team up together and try and stop it. And then there's once again there's kind of a lull. Nora gets decapitated in the lift, which is quite entertaining at the time, but it's going to happen.
Oh, do you know what I love about the lift? Is the greatest character maybe in all this series, which is the random guy that has a thing for sniffing her hair, doesn't he? And he's carrying a crate of prosthetic limbs.
Yes.
For no apparent reason.
Yeah, that's not explained.
Why is he carrying? Why has he got a box of prosthetic like hook hands and stuff?
Yeah.
Well, I was just moving these from one place. Why? Why have you got them? So they could get stuck on your. Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Which is the greatest gag. That's my favorite lift scene, apart from this. I don't know if you've seen it, Sarah, but there's a slasher film called Pieces where a very large guy played by, I think it's Paul L. Smith, the actor that's Bluto in the Popeye movie, manages to hide a chainsaw behind his back while he's sharing a lift with some girl, which is because he's the size of a horse and he's carrying a massive chainsaw, which is quite an impressive feat. But that guy who's sniffing the hair, who for some reason has some hook hands in a big box, is maybe my man of the match.
Okay.
Yes. Anyway, next. Yeah, she's off. Old mum of squished glass kid. She's gone.
Yeah, she's gone.
Shame. Too soon.
I mean, it was probably just about as spectacular as getting squashed by a giant plate glass thing. So absolutely. At least they go out with a bang. Then it kind of goes a bit strange. Eugene was the guy who was on the motorbike. He decides he's going to try and shoot himself and just get it over and done with. But Death has other plans and doesn't let him. They all then go after. I think Tony Todd. I remember now. He says something about how new life replaces the ones taken, or something to do with having children. And there was a pregnant lady that they'd saved as well, so they have to go try and find her because Kim has a vision about her drowning in a lake, or she thinks it's her that's drowning in a lake, so they go and try and find her. So they're all in one car together trying to find this woman who is going into labor at the time. She's been arrested because they want to try and keep her safe, but she goes into labor, so she gets the cop to try and take her to hospital. They end up, Kim and the guys in the car end up running her almost off the road, but crashing themselves. So pregnant lady and cop make it to the hospital and stuff. You kind of forget about them for a while as you then come back to the car crash that they've just had. Eugene gets taken away in an ambulance, and then as they're trying to cut, there's a kind of moody, sassy lady who likes to smoke a lot. She's trapped in the car. And they're trying to cut her out of the car. So she sat there with a cigarette on the go. She has a go at the guy for being too loud. So he says, I'll just put it on silent, thinking he's being funny.
Oh, yeah.
Sticks the cutter in the car, which then sets the airbag off, which pushes her head into a spike that's through the back of the headrest, which is brilliant. She is then wasted, gone. Her cigarette is still lit, which then falls from her hand into a gutter and lights some fuel, which we had already previously seen making its way towards the car, or from the car, from one of the other cars. And and it then sets the scene for Rory's death, who, because of the explosion, he tells a kid to duck, and in the ducking process, Rory stays up and gets cut to shreds by a fence, which is brilliant.
It's a great moment. He's a great character, actually.
Yeah.
And I like his, and you do feel for it. He's very funny, but he also makes a point of asking, so I've forgotten who he asked, but he asked someone to get rid of all of his porn and drugs, just so his mum doesn't get upset, which is great. Again, like Sean William Scott in the first one, I think actually
he's the
if he'd have
Sean
stuck
William
around
Scott of that episode.
Yeah, I wouldn't have minded him sticking around a bit longer. Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of it for like the kind of shock kills, because it then kind of turns into kind of like it does in the first one. Really, you kind of get like the kind of heroic type thing going on. So they want to get to the hospital and save the baby.
Yeah. That's right.
That kind of stuff, which kind of turns out to be a bit of a dead end, because they think they've cheated death, and then once again at the end there's a whole scene of Eugene being in the hospital bed. It kind of gets a bit silly. You could, like, the supernatural thing gets a bit silly, because obviously before people are about to meet their grisly end, there's usually some kind of like shadowy thing, as you said previously, or a wind that blows through. But in the hospital room, I suppose it could be seen to be a wind, but literally, like, the heart monitor and stuff is just literally just rolling away of its own accord. It's a bit silly, and the whole hospital room just kind of explodes. But not only does it take Eugene, it takes Claire with it as well, so she's gone,
which is good, actually, really, isn't it? I mean, she's outlived her usefulness in this franchise. That's I mean, I think there is a sense with these first two, maybe they weren't quite sure how to wrap it up in terms of the big finale, as may be proven by the fact that they originally intended a whole different ending for the first one, which nobody really would have liked. Although this one does have an absolutely thigh-slapping, hilarious, in the cinema, whooping with joy finale. The very last scene is obviously a joke. I mean, it's you better go check that barbecue, Jeff, or whatever his name is, which is hilarious. And I think the best ending of all the series is they decide to have a barbecue. Is it 6 months later or 12 months?
Something like that, yeah.
Because everything's okay, and it even looks, for the first time, the movie has real colour. Oh, everything's very. It's a summer's day.
They are going to be all right.
And then suddenly, I don't know, someone says something, and then the kid at the barbecue explodes, and his severed arm lands right on the lap or in front of his screaming mum, which is. Which is a hilarious kind of slapstick.
It is good.
But
Kim, the main girl, and the cop guy, am I right in thinking they make it out? I don't think they die.
Oh, they're still alive. Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah, they didn't die, did they? Because the thingies died in the explosion. Yeah, they're still about. Yeah, they're okay.
So yeah, they're still about, but they never ever surface ever again.
I like that no one cared enough to mention.
No.
Well, Final Destination 2 does have that hilarious sequence, which was obviously possibly written in, a late night where they're like, oh shit, let's tie this to where they're all sat in a van or a car or something. They were going, oh, wait, oh my God, that was the night I, picked up the body of dead guy from the first one, Billy Hitchcock. Flight 1X.
Oh,
we're all connected.
Yeah. It has that's kind of clever.
Yeah, which is cool. But otherwise, I mean, this movie, Final Destination 2, this is the one I've watched the most, actually, because I always associate it with it being the most entertaining and most kind of wacky, maybe, of the five. But it's pretty good, right? I mean, it's...
Yeah, I think I'm the same. I've probably the one that I've watched the most.
Yeah, because you look forward to... I mean, there is... these movies are all about an hour and a half, but there is inevitably some kind of pondering bits in between the deaths, because there's no time for character development, really, because you've got to move on to the next death, but at the same time you've got to have a bridge to the next pigeon
you've got to have something going on in the next pigeon bit.
And maybe, I don't know if maybe I'm wrong, but maybe Final Destination 3, Sarah, maybe that does it better than most in terms of keeping it moving, not spending too much time on dead weight. Ali Lata, that's you. and that kind of stuff. So number 3 is Morgan and Wong. So James Wong is back. Glenn Morgan is back from the original. It's the only one they came back to write and or direct. So that's quite cool. Number 3, Sarah. What's all this then? What's Final Destination 3?
Number 3 is weird. It's one that I've definitely not watched this as much as I've watched the others. In fact, I probably only saw this when it came out and hadn't watched it since because I was kind of like, I can't really remember what happens. But 3 is all about a bunch of school friends at a fun fair, and a roller coaster goes wrong and kills most of her friends. So a young girl, kind of like known as a bit of a control freak, Wendy, I think her name is there with her boyfriend, her best friend, and her boyfriend, and then a bunch of like acquaintances and stuff from school. Her sister turns up there as well. They all end up on this roller coaster. Just before it's about to go, she has one of those premonitions. Everybody dies in like crazy, horrible ways, but also fun ways. And it all starts off again.
Yeah. Yeah, the roller coaster was a good idea. I don't think this is the best of the disasters at the start. Maybe
no,
because it's a bit.
There's some good ones about,
but yeah,
people getting thrown into like walls and smashed into the ground and hanging off the. That's like I'm not great with like fun fairs and rides and stuff because I'm once again like with the plane thing. That's another triggering one for me where I can see that screw looks slightly loose. This whole thing could shake itself apart and well, I'll die. And one of the things that I'm always worried about is the things that come over your head. To hold you in. And there's a really freaky bit where it's kind of like stopped upside down, and the things that hold you in then release themselves, and those people just hanging like in midair and stuff, just holding on.
Oh, good God!
That's quite scary. It's kind of stuff that I think this could happen.
Oh, absolutely. I don't go on anything that goes upside down because I'm very limited.
Final Destination 3.
I'll go on. So a genius idea, I guess, of making this plane crash. Things we can relate to: plane crash, motorway crash. Totally makes sense. But no, it's a good setup. It does have Tony Todd is physically absent from 3 and 4, but he is the voice of the Devil's Flight, which is the ride with the satanic figure in front of it, and he does get to say his. Or I think it says "I'll see you soon" on the signage of that site. He says something like "You can run, but you can't hide" with his voice. So I guess he was just unavailable, or maybe the script for these 2 in the middle, 3 and 4, just didn't have space for him. I'm not quite sure what the deal there was, because he's a very vague anyway, obviously, but he is there to kind of service a kind of Tony Todd tick.
Yeah, kind of guide them in the right direction with his cryptic wonderings. Wendy seems to come to her own conclusion here because she's got one of those this is something that dates it a little bit because she's got a digital camera.
Oh yes, because nobody's taking pictures with their phone because they can't.
Yeah, exactly. So phone pictures and stuff, right? So she's wandering around with her digital camera, so she's taking pictures of her friends and stuff, and she starts seeing weird things in the pictures that are relevant to how they then die. So I think that's where they kind of maybe they couldn't afford Tony Todd at the time, or say he wasn't available or something. So they're like, well, we'll try and kind of get her to figure out on her own by putting these little clues in the pictures and stuff.
Yeah, the picture thing is interesting. The picture thing is very much like a holdover from the Omen series. Like in the first Omen, David Warner figures out some weird shit's going down because in those days, the dark room developed pictures. He sees in his own thing as well, in his own picture, he sees something across his neck, which suggests obviously correctly that he's going to get decapitated. So, and I think the whole kind of prophecy in a photograph thing was used in some of the J horror that was coming out before, the late 90s and early 2000s. I'm sure, I don't think it was the Ring movies in Japan, but it was some of them were using that kind of, which is quite a creepy idea of a photograph predicting in a sort of vaguish way your own mode of death, which is, although they do in this movie, it's not alone, but they do quite tastelessly use a picture of 9/11 as an example of,
Yes,
I
they
think it's the
do.
shadow of the plane, isn't it?
Yeah, on a
Which,
building.
I mean, yeah, I mean, yeah, fair enough. But it's about as bad
Mm.
taste as get. It's not the only one. I know the Omen remake, which I think came out around the same time, 2006-ish, has a bit with 9/11 where it's using it as almost suggestive of the Antichrist is rising. This was an example of it. Oh right, yeah, okay, well, but there you go.
Yeah.
But yeah,
The character-wise, they're very stereotypical, aren't they? Wendy loses her boyfriend and her best friend, so her and her best friend's boyfriend kind of team up together in the initial
yeah.
crash and stuff. But then you've got the two airheads. You've got like a creepy
Yeah.
guy that kind of hangs around with people. You've got like a meathead who's like into like his weightlifting stuff, and then there's a goth couple.
Oh, the goths are great. Yes,
The
exactly. Yeah,
goths are cool.
yeah, the goths
But
are great.
yeah,
The guy that's doing the upskirt shots, is that Frankie Cheeks or whatever his
yeah,
name is?
yeah.
Yeah, he's in the
That's his.
category of wait for him to
Yeah, like
die.
yeah. Really want him to die like kind of quick, but he gets a brilliant like Acme death.
Yes, that's with the engine that goes through his
Yeah,
head, isn't it?
engine through his head. Yeah,
That's
at the drive-through.
spectacular.
That's
Yes.
crazy. Absolutely crazy. But the first two to go with the two
Ah, this
airheads
is great. This is
in the
fantastic.
yeah,
I
they
love
they
this
go
bit.
to the they go to the tanning salon before the prom or something, don't they, to try and get themselves ready. And the dude locks himself out of the shop, so they're like, "We'll just, you don't worry, we know what we're doing. We'll do it ourselves." They put in their headphones, they get in their sunbeds. They turn the temperature up too much or something, and the aircon like explodes or something, and just basically cooks them.
Which is brilliant. This is a great I really like this sequence, and they play it quite well. They are totally vacuous valley girls or whatever they're meant to be. And it's full of jokes, like they're only at the tanning salon because they want to look good for the funerals of their friends, and there's like I think it's Jerry Ramone bobblehead that's part of the sequence.
Yes.
And it's a rare bit of extended nudity for this friend. You don't get
Yeah.
at a certain stage slasher movies like these, or teen horror movies like these, kind of felt awkward about nudity, but this one has plenty. And they're also hilariously, they're so dumb that they're just singing along nonchalantly to a roller coaster as their song in their headphones.
Yeah.
Notwithstanding the recent terrible deaths of their friends. But it's also, as well as being hilarious, it's also unpleasant. It's claustrophobic and horrible because they do burn to death in this very particularly horrible way. And it has the great cut, which again is kind of a bad taste joke, which works, which is from the overhead shot of their burning tan beds to the coffins, that they end up in.
Yeah.
So it's played for laughs, but it's also genuinely grim, which I think is a tricky balance, but I think it pulls it off because it's very unpleasant to die in this way. But we don't care about them because they're so dumb. And
they're both called Ashley.
Yeah, which and they say totally a lot.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me. I don't know if it's like a nod to Heathers or something, but
yeah, probably
everyone's called Heather. But the Ashley and Ashley thing is
they're hilarious. Yeah,
you kind of know that those ones are the first two to go.
Yeah, entirely. They are. And there's a few characters later on, isn't there, that you're like, well, he's as cartoonish as the Acme death, so he's going to be dead soon.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Because not long after that, Frankie gets the engine in his head in a rather spectacular drive-through sequence
with the runaway truck. That's really good, isn't it? Yeah, that's also
very
a
clever.
great gory effect.
Because you think it's going to be Wendy and the guy, I've forgotten the guy's name, the other guy, Kevin. You think it's going to be them, but it couldn't be them because they are like later on down the line. But then, when the engine flies out and goes into the car in front and you realise it's Frankie, you're just like, oh, wow, okay, cool.
Yeah, that's an extraordinary moment. And these movies, as well as by their very nature, have to have quite a lot of CGI, but there is a lot of really good practical gore effects as well.
Yeah, the CGI is that bit's quite good, but in other places in the film, the CGI kind of is not great.
Yeah, it's a little. I always thought number 4 is where it gets really distracting. It's very cartoony.
Yes,
But it starts kind of here. There's a bit of it in 2, but here is you do notice it
it's
more for
very
sure.
noticeable. Yeah,
Because yeah, as we've said so many times, CGI gore doesn't usually work that well. CGI blood looks very cartoony, and it does kind of take you out a bit. But the practical stuff that's there is typically really good. We get the first gymnasium kill of the series, I think, which is the hilariously kind of macho thingy that's thinks he's above all of this, and then gets his head squished between whatever the
yeah. He kind of draws us
doing a
to the two.
workout.
I mean, who at a gym would put two like real life, full size like samurai swords or whatever they are
Samurais.
above a wall where like people are working out and like shaking the walls, and you're like, the samurai swords are gonna, they're gonna like fall down and slice into bits. They still fall down, they slice bits off, and he thinks he's safe, but yeah, then he gets like his head exploded by the weight.
Which is pretty spectacular. I do think
It
that's
is
quite
clever, it's
great.
funny. It was
It's very
quite
splashy.
drawn out, a little bit
Yeah.
too deliberate, a little bit too drawn out, but it had a good payoff at the end, so you can forgive him for that.
I think so. And then and the goths, the goths in a hardware store, which is where they always hang out. And I like the fact that the goth guy is an expert on death statistics. Every day, blah blah. All goths know death stats. And they're also there's pigeons as well.
I was going to say there's pigeons. The pigeons are back
because they never went away. And the genius idea, of course, this kind of store where there's multiple perils. But I genuinely think that, which is a shame because I quite like these characters and she's great, but I genuinely think the bit where she ends up falling on a nail gun is really nasty.
Ow, yeah.
I like that. I think that's as nasty as maybe this one gets.
Yeah, you feel every single nail as it goes through.
It's through her face.
You're just jumping at every time you hear the nail gun go off. You're like, ow, ow, ow. Yeah, nasty.
And maybe that's the balance of these things is the more, obviously there's the CGI, more CGI kind of acme deaths of something very large falling on someone's head. But then there's the, obviously in this case, very simple, probably practical effect, which looks really good and makes you go, oh yeah, that's quite nasty. I think that works quite well. But yeah, that bit I think is kind of outstanding because it is vicious in how it's executed. It's not as drawn out, so it's quite abrupt as well. And from here,
Ian kind of gets skipped, doesn't he? So the goth guy gets skipped somehow because it missed him, and Erin got before she was supposed to go after him, so he was skipped and then she died. So he's now still wandering around the place.
Yeah.
But he's pissed. He's really angry at Wendy because apparently it's her fault that Erin died. He's really angry and he's after her. And that's when it all starts to go like really crazy because you know what they do, Stephen? They have to bring a horse into it. Who the hell brings a horse to a firework display? Honestly, I was so angry. Yeah, I was like, I hope that horse fucking kills everyone. So you're right for bringing it on. Yeah. So yes, they do decide to go to some, I don't know, centennial like fireworks display or something like that. So obviously, like somewhere where fireworks are going off it's going to have like some spectacular deaths to it, but not quite in the way that you think. But yes, some idiot decides they're going to bring a horse and do all oldie-weldy riding through the police streets, and then we'll let these fireworks off right next to the poor horse who goes absolutely nuts and bolts. Yeah, that would never happen. Bolts through the crowd with like reins and ropes dragging along. It picks people up with it and like drags them along. It gets Wendy's sister and starts dragging her, and just about before she's about to get impaled by I don't know, some kind of like farm equipment in her face or something, they manage to save her, and then the horse freaks out again because it's still there. People are not paying any attention to the poor horse that's like having an absolute heart attack, knocks a flag and impales one of the other girls.
That's right. And he Gothy McGrag gets like
He
ripped
gets
in
splattered
half
by a
by the.
cherry picker or something, doesn't he?
That's it. Yeah, that's quite a good death. There's quite an impressive sequence because I'm guessing there's a few elements at work there. It's quite good, that whole bit with the horse, in terms of it being quite convincing. From
Yeah, it just makes me so angry. The poor horse. No one's
well,
thinking about the horse.
they're ridiculous characters, aren't they? Oh, they're just, yeah. I mean, honestly, mental, Sarah, mental.
But yes, they think that like everything's kind of because they've saved Wendy's sister and Ian has now been smashed by a cherry picker. They kind of think like everything kind of goes a bit quiet. They don't think they've beaten death. They just think it's all over, don't they? So it then skips forward 5 months, and she's on a subway train. Wendy's on a subway train, waiting to go somewhere with her new flatmates or something, and her sister like suddenly just turns up. She's like, "Oh yeah, I'm here to do this, that, and the other." And she's like, "Oh wow, what are you doing here?" And she starts feeling a little bit uncomfortable and like seeing flashes. Then all of a sudden, for some reason, Kevin's there as well. He's on the train to somewhere else, and then it all goes a little bit crazy. And there's like another. This is kind of 2 for 1. This is because you get like the spectacular roller coaster thing at the beginning, and then you get like a crazy mental subway train crash at the end.
Which is quite well done, isn't it, as well? I
It's
think
very well done.
That's quite disturbing.
It's the only one that wipes everyone out as well. Because all 3 of them are killed, yeah.
Yeah, because they're all accident. They're somehow all there. Well, I guess Death's plan again, isn't it? Oh, it's you. Yeah. Oh, it's my sister.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and the signs on the train are all referencing other things. Like I think there's an ad for the tanning salon and things like that.
Yeah, everything. She's getting really freaked out.
And it's on Booth Street, which is presumably John Wilkes Booth, the assassin of Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln, who I think was mentioned in the movie earlier. Yes. So yeah, there's a lot of, and Tony Todd. Oh, he's the announcer guy on the.
Of course he is.
So that's quite cool. Yeah, I remember in the cinema again. Don't remember this one as much, but I remember being quite impressed by how grim the ending is, because it really is, because it's everybody's. There's no sense of we're going to have carryover into the next movie or anything.
Yeah. Or we can't think about how we're going to write these people back into the movie. Like they've completely forgotten about the 2 that survived in like the second one. So like we're just going to kill everyone. We're just going to do it and kill everyone, and it worked.
Yeah, and I suppose that's because typically, I mean, even the Friday the 13th movies obviously have a final girl every time, whether they turn up in the next one or not, and some of them do. It's quite, although this was the period where horror was quite cynical, and there was a lot of the nastier movies were out in kind of the early 2000s, which typically had bad endings, or like the Texas Chainsaw remakes. The sequel of that, I remember the final girl gets killed in Texas Chainsaw at the beginning and things like that. So yeah, I suppose it was the mood. But yeah, quite impressive. I quite like. I mean, the heroes and heroines of these films are not the most exciting people, because their job is to kind of slowly walk between crime scenes, basically, or in this case, death scenes, and be a bit somber because their friends are all dead, or they've envisioned their friends dying. But Mary Elizabeth Winstead is probably one of the most kind of charismatic, if that's even. If it even goes as far as that, because she's quite, I mean, she's a good actress. She was around a lot of stuff at this time. She's in Death Proof and things like this.
Yeah.
And I always thought she had more going on than perhaps Barbara Smith or whoever the heroine of the second one was.
Yeah.
So yeah, that had a bit more impact. This movie also carries over the trend for naming characters after horror directors. So there is Polanski and Romero and Dreyer and Robert Wise and things like that going on. So that's kind of a nice. And Sarah, this one also has creepy use of the classic-ish 60s song "Turn Around, Look at Me." I'm not sure if that's the full title or proper title, but that recurs in Final Destination 3. Turn around, look at me, which is
that's it.
I think a real strength of those guys that, like I said, they did it in the X-Files quite a lot, of using a kind of innocent sounding 60s song, or we've had John Denver in a decidedly creepy fashion. But yeah, Final Destination 3, I think it's a goodie. I think it's busy. It's, you know, the deaths are quite memorable, I think, in number 3. Yeah, I'd say after 2, which was a high benchmark, I'd say 3 is pretty good.
Yeah. It's one I feel like I've kind of neglected.
Yeah,
Because I
strangely
honestly,
as well. Yeah,
like, when I started watching it earlier, like last week or whatever, I was like, honestly, I really can't remember this one. I was like, I have seen it. I know I've seen them all, but I was like, I can't remember.
yeah. I didn't remember the fireworks
The
bit.
whole, the whole bit with the horse. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, did they just
Why
shoehorn
didn't I
this in?
remember this?
Yeah. 5. I'm like that with 5, which we'll come to, but I'd forgotten a couple of deaths in 5 because I guess I rewatched 1 and 2 a lot because I had, in the early days of DVD, I had those on DVD, so I was watching them, you know.
Yeah.
Because there was less choice then. Let's face it, we didn't have Netflix and things like that, so
No.
you got your
Just we'll
DVDs.
just watch Final Destination again. This is brilliant.
Let's watch that log go through that guy again.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how we talked to them.
Yeah.
Because there was no proper internet. The internet did stuff, but it wasn't very good.
No.
Yeah, no podcast. God, it must have been a grim time. How do we survive? I don't know. No Facebook. Yeah,
No.
even YouTube wasn't around. Jesus, man. We actually had more time. We didn't just get distracted by rubbish that filled up our
More time to watch the same film over and over again.
Rather than spending 4 hours scrolling through. Well, that's 2 hours. That's too long. That's too boring. That's too serious. That's too depressing. Final Destination 2. Yeah. So, yes, right, we're back. So, the next one, number 4, was in 3D. Now, if any horror series kind of lent itself to 3D, it's obviously Final Destination. And the next 2 were in 3D if you were there in the cinema. This one is actually called, number 4 is called The Final Destination. And the distinction is important because the trailers as well were all about the old-fashioned, you know, roll up, this year, death saved the best for last. That was the tagline because this was the last one.
Yes.
Wait a minute. We've been here before, Friday the 13th, the final chapter.
Yeah.
So we know Freddy's dead, the final nightmare, etc. So we know that's probably unlikely, but, you know, it's good marketing. David Ellis, who directed Final Destination 2, is also back for this one. So it's just like James Wan came back for 1 and 3. David Ellis did 2 and 4, which is quite cool. There's some continuity. Yeah. He's a big stunt guy. Although this one, interestingly, although it has a kind of massive stunt-based stroke CGI-based opening stretch, this one is the most CGI of all of them. And I think for that reason, and maybe for other reasons, this is, I would say, my least favorite.
But sure. I don't know why, but I do really like this one. I know
it's
the
in
CGI
and out very quickly. It's busy, I'd say.
Yes, I think this is one of my favorites.
Well, that's cool, and I kind of get why. I kind of get why.
It has some really cool. When we come to like our top 5 and stuff, you'll find quite a few from. My whole list isn't made up from 4, but there's definitely at least 2 from 4 in my list.
That is cool. That is cool. I mean, it is the one where, even more than the others, and quite rightly, I get it, because it's all about the day. And this is in and out in 80 minutes as well. It's very short.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing. At a time where Black Panther sequel is 3 hours long, I think it's a good thing that, yes, exactly. And Jurassic World, whatever it was called, with fucking bullshit, was endless. I think it's a good thing that this was half the length of, you know, the bollocks blockbusters that come out now. However, yeah, but this is the one as well, I think, where they totally get that we don't give a shit about, you know, Flouncy McGag and Derek McGraw, who are the leading teenager boy and girl that are just there to walk from there to there, have no personality, because it's all about getting to the next death.
Exactly, it's all about getting to the next death. Yeah, you're right.
I don't even know who they are. I don't know the actors or the characters' name. But then I don't think that's important, because we're there for that, and especially as it's in 3D. And the 3D, and I have to admit, even though I've said this is my least favorite, possibly due to maybe the rewatch, the 3D in cinemas was really super good, and I think probably it's fair to say the CGI gore works better when it's 3D rather than on TV. So that's very much in its defense, because the 3D stuff, unlike loads of other stuff that was coming out at the time, where 3D was just kind of sitting there not doing much, this was very much about throwing engines at people's heads.
Yes, slicing
Canisters.
people up through fences.
And it really worked in 3D. And the next one, number 5, was super good in 3D. So I think that's probably the most important thing to say, is that these things were designed as a cinema experience, and maybe lose something in these last 2. However, you know, the opening stretch is big, colourful, balls
still
to the
huge
wall,
fun. Yes,
in your face. Here's what you wanted. You've queued up for the Speedway. That was a genius idea.
It was a genius idea. Because once again, it could happen. Maybe not exactly how as dramatically and crazily as it actually did end up happening in that, but you know, people crash.
Wow, I'm quite interested. Yeah, I remember growing up, like watching. I wasn't, not a big watcher of sports, but you're always aware that there were big sporting events, and some of those involved this kind of thing. And sometimes on the news or while you're watching it live, there would be a crash, and you're like, shit, is someone dead on live TV? Yeah. And this plays on that. And I think they even mention, the token attempt at protection, which is the fence in front of the the front rows of the auditorium. Continuity as usual. McKinley's, I think, is a carryover from is that 3 McKinley's High School? Or the town?
Yeah, it is.
The invisible presence of death kind of being a thing.
And they're in Stand 180 as well. So it's kind of reference to 2.
Yes, exactly.
Reference to the first one and to the third one.
Yes, some amusing shop names like Death by Caffeine.
Yes.
And, Salon Dante. Yes. Which is all part of the thing, and it moves really fast. I mean, you're in and out. Even the title sequence is like kind of X-rays of the death scenes from the first 3 movies, which is quite a nice touch, because they thought this was the last one, so that's quite cool. But the crash, it's big on Looney Tunes stuff, isn't it? Squishings, a quite impressive stampede of panicking people.
Yeah, it's not just the car crash. It's like kind of like, I don't know, it makes you think of like Hillsborough disaster and stuff, because the stadium around them just starts falling apart and stuff as well.
Yes. Yeah, which was again a big thing in our youth of watching that real life shit going down.
Yeah.
Very much so. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's loads of debris and things flying through the air and stuff like that, which in 3D again was really awesome. Plus, I think what is now the traditional kind of really obnoxious but amusingly obnoxious guy, I've forgotten what his name is, but he's the guy with the lucky coin.
Hunt.
Yes, indeed he is. Oh, Hunt. Yes.
Him. Yeah, he's a prick.
He's amusing though, isn't he? Because oh man, we just lost a really hot MILF or whatever he is. He's quite amusingly horrible, and you're waiting for him to die, just like you are with Frankie Cheats, and then the guy in the 5th one that's coming up. The comedy, obnoxious,
creepy guy. Yeah.
Which I suppose is a slasher movie tradition, isn't it? Of having a real twat.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like same with like slashers and stuff. You've got your redneck, you've got your kind of token black guy. Not that I like to say it, but yeah.
Oh, the security guard?
This single mum. Yeah, the security guard. You've got the single mum and their kids. Again, they've gone back so it kind of went, the first Final Destination was a bunch of friends. The second one was a bunch of strangers. The third one was a bunch of friends. So we've now gone back to a couple of friends and random kind of strangers again.
Yes, who happen to be at the same event. Yeah, which is quite cool. And I like the broad title. I mean, I think it's amusing that I guess I don't know if it's sincere, but they tried to do a thing with like you said, token black guy. He's got a whole backstory about his dead wife,
family.
And family.
Due to his drinking problem and that kind of stuff.
But amusingly, no one gives a shit really, because it's just functional. Well, we've got to give him something to say or do.
Yeah.
But we're not there going, oh, it's terrible that I hope he's going to be all right. And he's played by a really good actor who's what's his name in Forrest Gump? Bubba thingy.
Yeah.
Who forms the Bubba Shrimp Company, I think, in Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
He's a good, genuinely good actor with a kind of cardboard role. But that's exactly kind of what we're here for. The racist redneck kind of future Donald Trump supporter is amusing, and that's a good death. That's the first death, I think, post.
It is the first death,
crash,
yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty good. That's the he's dragged through with he's set on fire, isn't he? And he's
yeah, but it's kind of his own doing anyway, because he blames the security guard for not letting him back into the stadium to save his wife.
Ah, yes.
So, and he's racist as shit, so he's picking on the black guy. So he follows him home. He gets really drunk. He follows George home, and he goes to do like the old school thing of putting the burning cross on the lawn. The whole KKK thing going on.
Good God.
Which then completely backfires on him. And yeah, he leaves he turns up in like a truck that's, I don't know, like it picks up a car transporter or something. So it's got a big old hook on the back. And he manages to not put the handbrake on or something, and manages to end up getting himself hooked by his own truck and dragged down the road on fire.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And his head flies through. His head lands somewhere, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, it does.
Yeah. Well, he's gone. And then the next one. Well, the next one is in the great tradition of the dentist and the eye plate, the optician. Well, I'm off to the salon.
I've got written on my notes here, the mum and two boys, and then literally all I've put is lawnmower, cigarette, hair salon.
You forgot nail scraping. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
and the
bit under the nails.
What did? I mean, it's fair enough, isn't it? But this is, the same thing. The real danger happens when she actually leaves the building. But until then, you've got the whole.
There's so many. Yeah.
The water's leaking. There's someone outside with a lawnmower. That's maybe he'll be relevant later.
Yeah.
And the close-ups of the nails. And she actually says, "I've got my eye on you" before the the thing, the stone or whatever it is that
basically
propels.
there's a dude outside mowing the lawn, and as she walks out he flicks up a stone which goes straight into her eye.
So the real threat was when you left the horrifying visit to the beauty salon where everything is a threat, like in Watchdog. Everything's a potential death trap. Which is actually genius. I mean, and again, it happens in front of her screaming kids.
Yes,
it's all designed to be very enjoyably in bad taste, which I rather like. The next one is the old is the mechanic guy who gets the big gas canister like a missile through his body, doesn't he? Which to the fence.
Yeah, which then slices him into chunks.
Yes, and it's the recurring traditional thing of when it happens, you get to see right through his body, don't you?
Yes. Just one little chunk just drops out,
which is quite icky. And I wish I knew like which movie first did that. I know Cannibal Apocalypse has the guy shot through the middle where you see right through his body. That was early 80s. Death Becomes Her, the comedy with
that was a lot later on.
Does it? Yeah, I'm guessing Cannibal Apocalypse might be the one, but lots of movies did it like recently, especially as effects became more kind of slick and impressive.
Yeah.
Always a good moment. We have the usual kind of thing of Bob and Emily, whoever they're called, kind of Googling stuff,
running around and trying to figure out who's next and how to stop things.
Oh my god. And then the next one, we have the reliable recurrence of the bother of pigeons. Pigeon shit triggers the next one. The car wash.
Oh my god, this whole time pigeons are sneaky bastards.
And
the car wash is scary.
Yeah, because I'm freaked out by car washes, Sarah.
Yeah.
When the dryer, especially when that fucker comes towards you, the brushes I can kind of deal with, but that thing, there's a point where you think it's going to go up, right? It's about, it's still coming, getting a bit close. Is this thing still on? The car wash thing, which is a kind of elaborate build-up, but the car wash thing, I think it was a genius idea.
Yeah, they kind of have two things going on at once, don't they?
Parallel, yes.
Both water related.
Which is clever actually, because that's because normally the series doesn't do that, but to have the misdirection of, oh, it's actually going to be him, is it? And
Yeah,
it
you're like,
is.
it could. Who is it going to be? Because you know that those two are probably next to go, but you're like, I can't remember which one goes first. Are they both
Yes.
going to go at the same time? You know, simultaneously, but in different areas. So her in the car wash and Hunt is at the pool, which has a reference to Clear Waters
Yes,
because
because
the pool
she's, yeah.
itself is called Clear Waters something or other park or something, isn't it?
Yeah, she's a company now. She's, oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just quite touching. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Car wash is horrifying. Actually, the obnoxious kind of jock guy getting disemboweled through the pool drain is quite an unpleasant death, isn't it? It's an interesting one. That how does that work? Is that physically possible?
I don't think it is, but it's fun all the same.
He's such a bastard, though, isn't he? He's such
Yeah,
a
he deserved it.
unpleasant shag as well, from evidence displayed in this movie.
Yes.
Yeah, I was trying to work out. Well, how? I mean, he sucked off not in that way. His guts are. Is that?
Yeah, was
I'm
he
sure
like
they've. How does that work?
sucked through the anus, like literally just sucked out through his anus?
I think
That's
so.
how I'm imagining it. So he was basically like turned inside out.
Yeah, somehow.
Which is pretty cool.
Through
Yeah.
the pool drain.
By a pool drain.
Yeah, I mean, he's in the category of, can't wait for him to go.
Yeah. You have to wait quite a while for him to go, though, don't you? You're like, come on, just kill him.
Well, yeah, and I'm still bitter because I think Sean William Scott should still be in these movies. I think he should be.
Yes.
I'm still okay. You've got the old security guard hilariously trying to kill himself in this film as well.
Yes.
Is that meant to be funny? I think it is. I think the whole thing is meant.
The whole thing is meant to be, yeah. Yeah, he tries to kill himself, and then when you think he's safe, they do the thing again like they did in the first Final Destination. He gets taken out surprisingly by an ambulance when they're at a hospital.
And he's in the middle of saying something as well.
Yeah, mid-sentence. Just completely wiped out when you're least expecting it. That was brilliant, though. I was very clever. I liked that.
It's very good, yeah. And sometimes I wonder if they had loads of chats about this. Oh, fuck it, let's just get an ambulance.
Yeah, just fucking bring back the shock. Running people over, and we'll use an ambulance this time. It'll be even more effective.
And then, of course, we're back in the inevitable Mal stroke cinema, which is showing a 3D film, ironically.
The health
is
and
also
safety nightmare. Yes. Fucking hell. Just like,
they've all gone for a tea break.
Video. Yeah, let's just look. We'll just pause it here and point out that's what they should use them for, health and safety. Can you show me on this film which points are kind of like dodgy areas here? Is it the nail guns? Is it the tools? Is it the cans of flammable liquids like next to a piece of broken glass?
This is Watchdog again. This is Lynn Folger. Yeah. This could be a potential death trap. This is the same every time. Screen 13, yeah. I mean, it's a pretty dodgy CG effect of the exploding cinema. Although, if you look closely, there's some proper gore in, like, I was meant to watch this sequence again because there's some proper gore with, like, members of the cinema audience that have got, like, nails in their face and shit like that. But yeah, they're watching Thingy in 3D and right. So personal fears alert. So especially from like when I was first going to London, terrified of escalators, really freaked out by them. Holding on to that wobbly side where, especially when fuckers run up them. Oh, don't run up that side. You're gonna kill us all. Holding on with sweaty palm every time. I'm never sure whether going up or down is worse. I think going up is worse because behind me is increasingly a massive gap, massive fall, isn't it? If you were knocked by someone. But in this case, I think this is pretty good. I think Jeff, whatever his name, girlfriend.
Your fears are correct.
But
that's a fucking horrible way to go, man. It's really painful.
at Leicester Square Station or something. Oh, and the
Mm.
humiliation of, well, oh, I've got my legs cut off. Yeah, that's pretty well realized, I think. The escalated death and the detail of what lies beneath her legs getting chewed up in those gears. The mechanics of this series is, I think, something that's quite alarming. That let's face it, we rely on all these intricate gears and mechanics and processes to kind of get us from there to there, whether you're flying in a
Don't really
plane,
think about it. Yeah.
or just
Or
going
traveling
up.
on an escalator. Yeah.
Exactly.
But Stephen, it did turn out all to be
No.
a figment of his imagination. Well, he had a premonition, another premonition.
Another within the premonition.
Yeah.
Sake. Yeah, this is a double vision nightmare, isn't it? This is like the third one. This is like 2 for the price of 1, like you said.
Yeah.
It was a vision. Yeah.
So he ends up running into the death trap that is the cinema construction site again and trying to stop it. And you think he's about to stop it. He does a really shit job of it, though, doesn't he? He nearly ends up killing himself by nailing himself to the wall.
Such is luck. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but he does manage to eventually get the sprinklers to start, which puts out the fire, so the cinema doesn't blow up.
Yes.
And they get everybody out safely. So the escalator doesn't eat his girlfriend or anything. Everyone gets out, and you think everything is all good and they've beaten everything. And once again, everything's serene and calm. So 2 weeks later, they are sitting in Death by Caffeine, which is their favourite coffee shop. And then as they're talking about how they've managed to cheat death, a lorry takes all 3 of them out by smashing through the window of the shop. Hooray!
Which is actually quite amusing, isn't it?
It's good, isn't it? I love it.
I like the idea of a coffee franchise actually called that. Did it ever happen?
That's brilliant. If I'm ever to...
Genius. I would go there. I mean...
if I was ever to start up if I was to have a coffee shop of my own, that is what I'd call it.
Me too. I know, and I think, I mean, I've possibly been too hard on this one, but this is probably the one that has the least titting about in between kills. I guess.
It really does.
That's why you like it so much.
Yeah, I think that's why I like it so much. You kind of think there's a little bit of a lull when it comes to the car wash and the pool and stuff. Yeah, that's kind of cool, but one of them makes it out. So you kind of think, oh, they're kind of trying to fluff around and do the hero thing. And then they have that whole bit at the cinema as well, which is like a mini film within a film.
Yeah.
It goes on for quite a long time and it's so action packed and so full on. And then they just that right end truck through shop.
Yeah.
It's fun. I really like it. It has its downsides, like you say. The CGI and stuff is a bit dodge, but if you're watching it in 3D, it's probably more effective. And yeah, I just think it's a lot of fun. I think for some reason that's obviously the one that I'll catch on late night TV, normal TV or something. I'm like, oh look, it's that one again. I like this one. I'll keep watching it. So I think I have watched this one the most.
That's cool. You see, I've watched it maybe 4 and 5. I think I've watched the least, just because somehow when they came out and everything. But yeah, I get it. That's it's the one that's maybe true to the kind of cartoonish spirit of it all, isn't it? It's like this is what you're waiting for. Dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's kind of the lifespan of the Friday the 13th movies was to do just that. Here we go. Well, because nobody wants character development in things like this. It's all about pigeons.
Just want to kill everyone. Yes. Weird, convoluted ways of killing people and death traps and construction sites.
Exactly.
Some very, very funny and silly, ridiculous kills.
It's always amusing, isn't it? The stuff where somebody's in the foreground and suddenly an engine or something propels itself right behind and takes out their head. Yeah. I mean, that's the signature of these movies.
I mean, if that actually ever happened around me in real life, I think I would be absolutely mortified. But watching it on films and stuff is just great. It's brilliant. Watch it all day.
And this, I mean, I was always surprised. I mean, I think from memory, I think 4, probably because of 3D, which at the time was huge because things like My Bloody Valentine remake was in 3D, which also worked really well in the cinema. I think 4 is the biggest grossing one, at least in America, of this 5-strong series. And I think 5 dropped off. And I'm guessing, because 5 looks like it must have cost a lot because it's got 2 massive set pieces in it, beginning and end. And 5 dropped off a bit. And I'm assuming that's why they stopped it there. Although 5, of course, is ultimately full circle. 5 is what I thought was fantastic in the cinema, was not realizing it, even though there is a hint early on, or at least 1 or 2 or 3 or 6 hints, not realizing it, but we were set up for a prequel rather than a sequel with number 5 of, before the first one, stuff like this was going down as well, which in retrospect explains why people were very rarely using phones, and if they did, it was a very kind of 2000-ish style phone, and nobody was Googling stuff to find out what Death was up to. So the most recent one, until whenever the revival is, was Final Destination 5, which does work as a finale for the series, even though ultimately it's not. Was also in 3D, and you get like a rather nice, I think, title sequence, which is a kind of 3D enhanced montage of various ways to die from earlier in the series, which I quite liked. And this I think does have, although I still think 2 has the best vision disaster, this is a close run for me, because I think the bridge, the suspension bridge, is quite well realized and possibly taps into my terror of bridges as well. And amusingly as well, complete with the actor, I don't know, do you pronounce it David Koechner, the bald guy? David Koechner? He's very amusing as part of this kind of paper company.
Yeah, I know who you mean. Yeah, the boss, Dennis.
Yeah, who's and I love the callousness of this company, and him especially, where he starts mourning the death of someone at a funeral who actually didn't die.
Yeah.
Oh, wasn't he dead already? he underplays, and he does it very well. And he actually turns up in a few horror movies, including Krampus and Cheap Thrills. He's an excellent, and of course he is from the US version of The Office, which is why it works so well, I think. So a bunch of idiots from a typical office environment.
They are a bunch of idiots, aren't they? I don't mind the main
guy. I think. It is a mixture of personalities.
Yeah, I don't mind the main guy, but they've kind of put in another like Clear Waters type female character to go alongside him, who's boring as hell.
Yes. Oh yeah, it's those two, isn't it? It's again interchangeable thingy and what's so they're on a business retreat. The hint of where this is going is logging truck number 180. The hero guy mentions going to Paris as part of his thing.
Which I didn't twig.
Me either. On first watch, not a clue.
Yeah, not a clue. Didn't even think about it.
But cannily set up, I think, and it was nice to be surprised when first watching this. And there's the truck with the logs again, coach trip, and they're on a bridge which collapses with, I suppose, very typical Final Destination gags, like someone falling into the water, surviving, but then being taken out by a falling car.
Yes.
A really grisly kind of it's the guy that looks or sounds like Tom Cruise that's taken out by a bunch of metal poles. One goes through his face, which I think is really gruesome.
He reminds me of Tom Cruise as well. It's the eyebrows.
Very Tom. Yeah, something. Yeah, to eyebrows. Yeah. David Koechner, however you pronounce his name, is showered in hot tar, which I think is really nasty. And it's the kind of typical for this series as well thing where it's not enough for someone to have something horrible happen to them, but they have to, in the style of Titanic, kind of fall down and hit something else on the way down. And so this is, I think, maybe, is it the most jokey one? I mean, you've certainly got like the kind of typical office thing where everything's very insincere, and there's the memorial where no one really gives a shit, and Isaac is I would say the goofiest of all the victims in this, the kind of pervy idiot.
Oh yeah.
Who meets his fate at the acupuncture. Another trip to the so-and-so. Oh, acupuncture. So yeah, I mean, but I think this does have a bunch of great deaths, Sarah. I do think the bridge
It
collapse is
does,
great.
yeah.
The deaths are good.
Nobody like gets off lightly. Not that they ever did in any of the others, but like you say, you described quite a few of the gruesome deaths that happened to them in the guy's vision on the bridge. But actually, what happens to them afterwards is possibly, with some of them, like slightly worse, or mostly even worse.
The
Because
first one,
the first one is
brilliant.
just another like really cleverly, quite drawn out, but really well set up.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's kill because she dies, but she basically ends up kind of killing herself. She goes to a gymnastics competition or something like that. She's been doing it for years. Something goes horribly wrong. Once again, there's like dodgy wiring to like some fans that are laid out on the floor. The air conditioning is dripping like onto the like mats right next to where this like live cable is sitting. You're like, I know someone's gonna bloody get themselves electrocuted. Oh, the screw on the
for a long
whatever
time
it is, like
on the support beam.
Yeah, whatever it is. You're like, oh my god, how can I was like, is no one seeing that? Surely you'd be looking where you're going. But yeah,
He's
there's this
watching
little
it as well.
screw like pointed up whilst this girl is like dancing around on this support beam, and you're like, she's gonna stand on it, she's gonna stand on it. It's gonna be horrible. None of that actually ever happens, but when she then goes to like the bars and it's kind of all rickety, you can see the screw working itself loose, and you're like, oh, she's gonna like snap her legs in a really horrible way. And then I think somebody else trips over the wire or something whilst they're like there's like a tub of chalk or something that they're dusting their hands off with, which then knocks that over into the fan just as she's about to do her dismount, and she kind of snaps herself in half. Like, and there is bones poking out in all sorts of directions, isn't there? And they kind of like focus in on her quite a lot for quite a long time. You're just looking at her going,
yeah, that's horrendous. Yeah, and the clever thing, because we all know what it's like to stand on a nail or something, which, like you said, proves to be totally irrelevant, but is a great misdirection.
There's a lot of triggery, ouchy, pointy things lying around in this one.
Massively.
I think that's why we feel like things are probably a little bit worse in this, because they're quite often, on pointy things. Poking around.
Injury, entirely.
Just little things that are going to hurt like hell, like the acupuncture needles. When you see him, you don't see him fall on them. You see him fall off the table, and you're just like, "Ow!"
It's horrendous. And that's the gymnast thing is fantastic. I think that's one of the standouts. But it's genuinely gruesome, and I guess it all looks practical. I mean, I think there's invisible CGI in that. I think I remember seeing the behind the scenes thing, which stuff you don't think about, involving merging like a dummy with the real person, and that's by digital, but you don't think about that. And the goofiness of the guy that has the acupuncture, I think, just adds to the discomfort of seeing him getting it and then falling on it and then hilariously getting his head squished by the Buddha statue. After he's survived like the whole place going up in flames. And, but yeah, it is a return to that more kind of relatable injury or cringy stuff with eyes, and the laser eye thing is harrowing.
I
this
knew
is a dentist type thing.
Yeah, I knew you'd probably be cringy about that, because you're not good with like eye stuff. And to be fair, I'm not great with it, but I was cringing. Like even the setup when he's putting that like brace in her eye so she can't blink her eye, and like putting their head restraint on and stuff. You're just like, this is going to be painful.
Which is one reason why I've forgotten what they call those things, but like the clamp that keeps the eye. But because it's one reason why I find the sequence in A Clockwork Orange almost unwatchable, where he has to have the technique to desensitize him. But yeah, same thing here, and everything's off. The guy, the optometrist or whatever you call him, he's for some reason slightly creepy, and there's loads of teddy bears in there, even though a bit like with the baby mobile, there's no reason probably to have a place that's genuinely dealing with adults, to have loads of teddy bears.
Kids don't really go in for laser eye surgery, I don't think.
but it's horrific. It's so
It
unpleasant.
is. Oh yeah.
And as ever, what we almost expect, and yet the cleverness of the film is to distract us that this is not going to happen. But the biggest threat is, elsewhere. She falls out the window, lands on a car,
Yeah.
and her eyeball falls out and gets run over itself. The eyeball. It's
Classic.
it's very well played. She plays it really well. It's
Yeah.
genius setup. This is a great one for deaths, I think.
Tony Todd has more screen time in this than he does in any of the others, I feel.
Yes, he has a couple of two or three scenes.
He turns up to pick up the dude from the massage parlor, the acupuncture guy.
Yes,
I think no, they see him at the gymnast one as well, don't they?
That's right. And he's got a coroner jacket on, and he's kind of more of a real presence that's lurking around death scenes, and still talks about the idea of if you kill someone, you can change the plan of death.
Yes, yeah. So in this one, he's trying to say this time, instead of the whole baby thing, it's like if you kill someone else, replace your death with someone else's, then you'll be all right. He tries to hint at that.
Yeah.
Which then gets old Tom Cruise guy thinking that he can probably try and cheat his death by trying to kill someone else in place of him.
Yeah, and Tom Cruise guy does have a kind of creepy, floppy-haired American Psycho kind of obnoxious thing going on. So that
you think he's all right to start off with, but he does kind of turn him a little bit crazy.
Yeah,
which is understandable, I guess. I don't quite know how I'd deal with something like that.
Just like the jittery guy that ends up, well, he doesn't mean to, does he? But he pushes the other guy at work into the hook, the big kind of gaff. Yeah. I love the fate. It's very brief because there's a couple in here that are pretty abrupt, which I think works really well because others are drawn out. But the death of the boss is really good with the flying. It's a wrench,
spanner.
Goes right through his face.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. He's the dude that gets tarred and thrown off the bridge in the Vision, and he probably gets a quicker death. But having a spanner going literally, you can see it embedding itself within halfway into his skull. Yeah. Pretty nasty. But that's another one. That's another one of those very quick. Wasn't quite expecting it. Didn't get hit by an ambulance. Put a spanner in the face. Kills.
Yeah, which works really well, and it's another great practical effect. Actually, it's the aftermath. At least is a great gore effect. Yeah. And that's pretty much the main death. And you get like the FBI guy wandering through.
Yeah, who's like you say, he's the weird little filler thinking. I can't remember how he came along. Oh yeah, because he thought the original guy blew up the bridge. The same kind of premise as the FBI guys in the first Final Destination, thinking Alex was the one responsible for blowing up the plane. This FBI guy thinks that the other guy in this, can't remember his name, Nick or Sam or something like that, is responsible for blowing up the bridge, which he's not. So, but he is following them around, and the boss Dennis guy is kind of egging him on a bit. He's he'll phone him up randomly and go, "Oh, so and so is acting a bit weird," which kind of gets him sniffing around the place. But he kind of then cottons on. He notices that Tom Cruise guy is going a bit weird, so he starts following him, and then once again it kind of goes a little bit airy fairy, a little bit hero-y. Tom Cruise guy goes slightly on a rampage and tries to kill Molly, which is the kind of dull female character who actually never actually dies in it in the first place. Sam saves her in his vision as well, so she never dies. So he thinks if he kills her, he'll be all right. I don't know how that works, but he's gone a little bit mental. He ends up kind of attacking both of them. He kills the FBI guy in the process, but Sam manages to, he skewers him with a rotary chicken skewer or something. Because he has 2 jobs. Obviously, he works at this office, and then I think by night he's something like a chef or something. And that's when the Paris thing starts to happen. He's like, "Oh, I should take this apprenticeship in Paris." I'm thinking, you're mentioning Paris an awful lot here. What's Paris got to do with anything? It's I vaguely remember something about Paris. So yeah, he then decides that he's going to take this apprenticeship, and yeah, Pete goes mental. They kill him with a rotary skewer, and then him and his girlfriend 2 weeks later get on a plane to go to Paris. And what plane
Yeah.
is that?
Which is it, isn't it? Which is the
It's
180. It's
the
the original,
plane,
which is genius.
which I didn't twig right up until they kind of like then put in the footage from the original of Alex going nuts, saying he has to get off the plane. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, that's why there's no random references. Because in some of the other movies, they're like, oh yeah, the same thing
Loads.
happened like a year ago. Oh, I've heard something about something that happened like 2 years ago on this
All
day.
of them.
Like
Yeah, all of them
180.
do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Except that one.
And they're all
Until right
Googling.
at the end.
And in I think it's
Yeah.
4 or 3, they're Googling the previous events. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's clever though, because you're distracted by the need for bloodlust of the deaths and things like that. So you don't think about it.
No.
And
But it's
also
great.
there's no new tech, is there? There's no there's not much,
No.
there's no computer scenes, there's nothing that would date
No.
it as being out of sync.
So it's kind of gone like full circle. So obviously
Very
maybe it started with Sam and then moved on to Alex, because obviously
Yeah.
he had his premonitions and stuff weeks ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, that then wipes them two out as well. So it's kind of gone full circle, which is a great way to end it. But even though they kind of tried to end it with 4 and they've done a prequel with 5, there is still room for more. And I think we should have
Always.
another one. I think we should have loads more. I think after 6 they should do another one.
Yeah, I think
And it
so
would
as
be
well, because
really cool to find out what scenario they're going to use next.
I think that's it, isn't it? That's the pleasure of it. Like, it was always exciting when the new one was announced, because you're like, oh, and
Yeah,
then
you're
you
like, oh,
find
what's it
out
going to be
it's
this time?
Speedway or it's the roller coaster. Yeah, I think it will do enormously well, whatever it is, the number 6, because it's an easy franchise to
Absolutely.
sell.
Yeah, I'm surprised it hasn't come back sooner.
Me too, because these things are always out there. They're on Netflix or something, and I think
And
people,
everyone's always going on, oh, do we really need another Friday the 13th? Do we really need another Halloween? Oh, look, there's another Halloween remake. It's like, these have been sitting here. You know, the last one was 2011. They've been sitting here for like 10 years, 11 years. And no one's gone, oh, let's make another Final Destination. No one's going to complain about that.
No one. No, exactly, because it's just writes itself. I mean, they just have to come up with some really cool deaths, and
yeah,
I think it will be enormous
with health
fun.
and safety the way it is these days. You know, they could do so much with it.
A potential death trap.
Yeah,
exactly.
But yeah, they are fantastic films, all 5 of them.
None of them are dull.
No.
Exactly. I think that's it. It's a rare series where you don't mind rewatching any of them, really.
Absolutely not. And you don't really have to watch them in any particular order either, do you?
Nah, not really.
Like I say, I don't think I've watched, I've seen 3 and 5 the least, I think. I think I've probably seen 4 more than anything, then 2, then the original.
Yeah, I watched 1 and 2 a lot, just because of when they came out and
back
the DVD
in the day.
thing. Yeah, I think that's the reason. But then they're really rewatchable.
So much.
And it's and of course 1 was great. I mean, 1 only suffers because much more outrageous stuff happened later. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Isn't it? I suppose it's a bit like slasher movies like Friday the 13th. More exciting, gory stuff happened later than the original.
Yeah.
It's just the way it kind of goes, because they have to outdo each other. Yeah.
Fantastic. But yeah, we've been talking about doing a Final Destination like episode for like months and months, haven't we? We kept putting it back because we're like, oh, it's 5 films, it's quite a lot to watch. But I could tell you, I could sit and watch them all again.
Yeah.
Like tomorrow.
Yeah.
Maybe I will. It's the weekend.
They're a breeze. They're a total breeze.
So, what would be your top 5 kills, Stephen?
Well, it was tricky, actually. It was much trickier than I thought it would be. I've chosen 5 that are entirely the kills that happen after the vision, so the survivor kills. Although, from the other side of things, it would be obvious to me that the log going through the car in Final Destination 2 in the vision is the standout one, because that's just astonishing. Although I also think the whole thing with the guy that gets the poles in his face and is kind of shish kebabbed in 5 is really impressive as well. Survivor kills, though, definitely, we talked about it quite a lot, but definitely the very first one in the very first film, the horrifying bathtub death, is probably the one that's just really disturbing. And also you can see it happening for real, because there's no real well, there is a chain of events, but it's basically based around the idea of someone slipping over in the bathtub, which we know we've all done. For sheer kind of, as we said before, Rube Goldberg kind of mousetrap shit, the lottery winner in Final Destination 2 has to be in there. For shit your pants, I can't actually watch this. Almost the laser eye thing from 5. The gymnast from 5 is outstanding. That's horrific. So that's in my 4. And the other one, it was really tricky actually, but and I almost did the nail gun thing because I think it's horrifying, but I went for the tanning salon because I think that's the perfect balance of funny because they're so dumb, but also really disturbing because I feel really claustrophobic watching it, and they're burning alive. As much as we hate them, I wouldn't want them to go through that. But then I almost chose the dentist, but yeah, there's a lot. But yeah, I think that's my 5 because they're all genius.
Cool.
What about yourself?
Okay, so I couldn't decide on a exact 5, so I've cheated and gone for 2. So my 2 number 5s are Sam and Molly on Flight 180, right at the end of 5.
Oh, that's
just genius.
Grim, yeah.
Just them, just like the realization in my mind of them going, oh my god, they're on the same plane as them. Smash. Yeah, that's my 5. In close relation to that, I've got the 3 remaining characters in 4 getting killed by the lorry in Death by Caffeine. Just because it's funny, it's brilliant, and it's clever.
Yeah.
So that was my joint number 5. My number 4 was the laser eye surgery in 5. My number 3 was the smoking lady in the car that then leads to the fence ripping Rory to shreds in 2.
She's actually a really good. I quite like her character.
She's a good
kind of
character.
Feisty and sarcastic. Yeah.
2 is one of my all-time favorites, and I specifically haven't said it because I wanted to bring it up now. But in 4, at the beginning, in the vision, so you have the mechanic and his wife. The mechanic's wife's head gets smashed with a wheel. In the vision, and then when the crash actually happens and she's saved and they're brought outside of the building, a wheel flies out of the stadium and smashes her in the head again, so it's like getting smashed in the head twice.
What are the chances?
Absolutely. I thought that was absolute genius and brilliant. I was like, that's one of my favorite things. Yeah, that is a great gag. And I'm like, the poor woman that was the actress in that literally had to have her head smashed in by a wheel twice. Just absolutely brilliant. And yeah, my number 1 is the whole road traffic accident at the beginning of Final Destination 2.
Everyone knows that.
Everyone knows that.
Yeah, you don't think
because
about
it is
these
just
movies
brilliant.
crossing over, but everyone knows the logs, and we've been behind that truck on the A47 or wherever.
Yeah, many times.
And it's brilliant.
Nope.
Yeah, it's the ultimate combination of old-fashioned stunts and gore and CGI stuff. Yeah, it's unmatchable, that one. Marvelous. Well, that's a pretty good countdown. It's hard to shoehorn those into 5 because there are a number.
Oh god, yeah, there's so many others. Yeah, I literally kind of when watching the films and stuff, I've always been confused as to which death happens in which film. So it was a good way of going, oh yeah, that one then, and then literally to come up with my list. I kind of wrote down my favourite kills in every single one, and then had to narrow it down from there.
Yeah, it was just a great excuse to watch these again in a few days, wasn't it? Really, that's the
sure.
Thing you normally wouldn't necessarily.
I want to do it again.
Yeah, they're really rewatchable, and I think that's what will make number 6, a big hit whenever it comes out, however it comes out. I guess it's next year. I don't know anything about it except there's a vague, I guess, poster or a fake poster. I'm not sure anymore. But yeah, nice. Well, marvelous. That was the Final Destination series, Sarah. astonishingly good fun. And that is, of course, the end of this particular chapter. However, we are back for the very last one of 2022 in December, which is sadly very close now. All Christmas is back. Seems like last month it was Christmas, but it's back.
Yeah.
I think, as far as we know, we're being joined by at least one of the other boys that tend to come to our yard on these podcasts. At least one of them will tell them, maybe both. Those handsome devils have got a lot on these days, but we shall see. We're going to be doing a review of the year sort of thing next time. We don't do our recently seen in the episodes anymore because we're getting too long, but we're going to be looking back at 2022's horror, and it has been actually a pretty impressive year for stuff, some real mad stuff as well this year. So we're going to be looking back at our favorite horror movies of 2022, having a good chinwag about that, and perhaps pulling out a few surprise choices from the bag along the way. So join us for that in December. But otherwise, Sarah, that's actually it for this episode.
That is it. So, it's been fun.
It sure has. Yep. We'll keep watching out for those potential home-based death traps.
Yeah, I'm on it now. I'm tuned in.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm still extremely paranoid, but yeah, also tuned in. And I'm going to watch my wine glass really carefully.
Yeah, don't trip it over the computer when you're done.
That would be it, wouldn't it? Drunk a whole bottle of wine in a couple of hours, but then face exploded in a shower of glass. It's what he would have wanted. Yes, exactly. What a terrible way to go. But yeah, that's it. So do join us. Thanks for joining us for this one. And we shall see you, or possibly not see you, but you can hear us in the next episode 35 in December. So it's good night for now. Take care, guys. Bye for now.
Bye.